on credit cards or basically building credit. And for today, we're going to be talking about 5 different myths about credit cards, 5 different lies that people often hear about credit cards. And they're essential to talking about because a lot of people believe these myths and these lies. They end up either sabotaging their own credit, or they end up not applying for credit, or they don't know how to get credit or how to attain credit because of the myths that they've been taught. So basically, I'm here to, you know, debunk the myths of credit. All right, so let's get into it. Hi, Bander. Thank you for joining me. Hi, how are you? Thank you. Welcome. This is our, what I think this is our 4th episode of this series that we're talking about. So I'm just gonna, wait at least another minute to see if anybody else will join me. But let's talk about the 5 myths of credit. All right. So before I start talking about the myths, I just, yes, thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate your support. Before getting into it, as I said before, I said yesterday's live. I think I'm, doing a live every single day. I'm gonna, try to do a series of maybe like a good 10 lives to talk about, credit, because I find that a lot of people are interested in this topic and how credit really works. So I have a total of 5 myths, that I want to discuss when it comes to credit. All right. So the first one that I want to talk about is, there's a myth, or there is something, or people that say that it's basically good to carry a balance on your credit cards. That is not true. That is a myth. You can carry a balance on your credit card if you can't afford to pay all that you've spent. This is why the credit companies give you a payment each month. So I always use the example where if you have $1,000 credit card balance or $1,000 credit limit, and maybe you use maybe $300 of that, and when the bill comes, right, which is a 30% utilization, when the bill comes, then you're encouraged to pay it off, but maybe you don't have the money to pay it off, right? So a lot of people tend to carry balances, and there's a rumor that if you carry a balance, that it helps your score. It really doesn't help your score to carry a balance. It really doesn't, because the only thing that it's doing when you're carrying a balance is that it's basically putting more interest on your balance. In other words, the credit card company is making more money and it's costing you in the long run. So, hi, Annette Leo. Thank you for joining. Welcome to our credit series. This is our, our lives. I have a live almost every evening, and I talk about building and getting credit. And if you're just joining me, for the people that are on the live, we're talking about myths. 5 lies basically about credit cards that people tend to believe, but they're not true. So the first one that I talked about, that it's good or it's wise to carry a balance. No, it's not good to have a balance on your credit card. If you can pay what you use, when the statement comes due, that's fine. But if you can't pay what is due, the credit card company will still allow you to pay the minimum. So when you get your statement, it's going to say minimum payment due. Now, you can always pay more than the minimum, or you can pay the minimum or more earlier than it's due. All right. So, saying that carrying a balance is going to help you, have better credit is not true. Now, there is one caveat to that. If you have a balance on your credit card and you're paying more than the minimum, it's perfectly fine. You're basically showing the bank that you know how to revolve, you know how to manage your money, right? But carrying a balance that, is not benefiting you, it doesn't really help you in the long run. You understand what I'm saying? So it doesn't really benefit you to carry a balance on, on your credit card. All right. Now, the second one that I'm going to touch on here is when people say, listen, um, that you should close a credit card once you finish paying it off. Wrong. Don't close it. I talked about this yesterday during our series, during our show. And hi, Bolu. Thank you so much for joining. It's good to see you, friend. Yes, I'm having a series of lives, and we're talking about building good credit. Wonderful. Welcome, welcome. I hope you could stay the whole time. Just trying to get these hours up, right? So the second one is that, it says that when you close a credit card, it helps you to, grow your score. It doesn't. If you pay off a credit card, let's say you pay off a credit card, right? And when you pay off a credit card, you have it there. I know sometimes you might be tempted to want to use the credit card, but here is the thing about it. If you want to use that credit card, I tell people, I say, just put the card away. Okay? Thank you so much, Bolo. Thank you for your support. I'm supporting you too, and we really got to connect, and we got to do a live together one of these days. We really got to do something, right? Hi, Alice. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're talking about the beauty of credit, and we're talking about the myths and the lies that we learn about credit cards. But I'm here to tell you that we're talking about 5 of them. We're gonna break them down. So if you pay off a credit card, right? When you pay off a credit card, it doesn't benefit you to close the card or to even get rid of the card. You want to keep that card. So if you keep the card, what you're going to do is maybe, let's say you paid off the credit card now in the month of September, as we're speaking. Maybe next month or in November, you might use the credit card again and make one purchase. Okay? Because remember, you're trying to build a credit history, right? So even though you paid it off, the lender is still watching to see how you work with that credit card. Now, here is the trick. Some people might say yes, some might say no. Maybe you want to get a little bit more credit. You want to, get more credit so you can spend more. Right. So if you're able to pay that credit card off and the lender sees that you haven't, you never went over the limit, you didn't have any late charges, etc., they might just increase your limit. So there, right. So there, hold on a second. Okay. Sorry, let me get this person off my live. Anybody that comes on the live and they're disrespectful or rude, I get them off. Right. We have a community setting. This is a live to educate people. Okay? And if you're going to be rude, you have to get off my live because I will block you off my live. I'm not here for you to insult me. If you don't like what I'm saying or you're not interested, you disconnect. You're free to leave. But if you're just joking and you're sincerely apologizing, that's fine. But please don't interrupt me with rude or obscene comments. Right. You do it again, you're getting blocked. Please get off my live if you're going to be rude. This is for people that really want to learn. Right. Thank you, Bolo. I don't like when people disrespect me like that. This is for people that really want to learn about credit. People that want to learn how to level up their money. Right. People that want to learn how to, make their money work for them. Because in this lifetime, the problem is a lot of people are basically, what's the word? They let money control them. My channel is about you learning how to control money. You get what I'm saying? Anyway, so as I said, once you pay off a card, please don't close it. Leave it there. And once you leave it there, you're able to get better, you'll be able to get better rates. You'll get a higher credit balance. Okay? That's exactly what that's about. So that's a plus. If you can pay off a card, because you have people that will have credit cards and they'll have them lingering on for years. As I said yesterday during the series, you can have $1,000 credit card. And if you take, like, let's say 3 to 5 years to pay that card off, you can end up with like a 5,000 to 7,000 balance that, the bank, or you end up paying an interest. So it's kind of wise for you to, pay it off. Okay. Bolu says if credit works in Nigeria. So Bolu, I'm in the U.S., right? I'm in the U.S. I'm sure every country has credit. Exactly how credit works in Nigeria, I really don't know, but right. Exactly how it works in Nigeria, I'm not really sure. But I mean, I could always guess that there is credit in every country. You understand what I'm saying? There is credit in every country. So if you were to get a credit card, I'm sure the same rules would apply because business is business, right? Everybody, all the banks want to make their money, right? Okay. So they have something there called credits system. Yeah, right. So almost, all, foreign countries, they have their own system. So as I said, I'm in the US. I'm sure if there's somebody even on this line that's from the UK, um, you know, one second. Hold on. Okay. Right. I'm sure that wherever you are, you will be able to hold on a second. Let me learn how to do it because I'm new with this live thing. Thank you, Bolo. I'm trying to figure out exactly how to do it. I just hid his comments. I gave it a timeout. Right. Yes. Yep. I think I just did that. Sorry about that, guys. Right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm learning. Like with Bolo, when I watch your lives and I watch your videos, I always see you, so energetic and so forth. So right. I'm new to this thing. But anyway, what was I saying? I'm not sure how it works in Nigeria, but I'm sure every country has their own form of credit, their own system. So I mean, maybe you could research. I always tell people to do the good old fashioned, you know, Google. Google tells us everything, or get professional financial advice. But I was talking mainly like focused around here. All right, so that's the second myth that we want to debunk. That paying off a card, that you should basically close the card. Never close your credit cards. Never. Just leave them there. You don't want to use them or you're tempted to use them. I don't know. I tell people like, hide them under a mattress or something, or, put them in a closet. But just use them every once in a while to keep the line open. You don't want it to go dormant. Okay? All right. The third myth that we're going to talk about, that a lot of people say that when you apply for credit, that it ruins your credit profile. All right. Right. Okay. So Bolu said that credit works in the USA, UK, Germany, and Canada. Right. So, okay, I know for countries like the US, I know for the UK, I don't know about Germany, and I know about Canada. Yes, the credit system is basically the same. But how the credit is in Nigeria or any other foreign country, like, I have no idea. But yes, the credit is the same in the UK, basically the foreign countries. Right. That's exactly right. And funny you said that because this is a credit run society. It's like when I go in a store, when I go to buy anything, right? Whether I'm trying to purchase a car, at the time if I'm trying to purchase a home, everything goes off of your credit score. It's like I know most countries or most places it's cash society, but here in America, everything is based on credit. It even looks odd. Like, let's say you go into a place like a dealership to buy a car, and you want to buy a $30,000 car, and you go in there, and you say to the dealership, you say, "Listen, I have $30,000." They're not gonna like want to do a deal with you because they're gonna look at you like, "How did you get that money?" They want to go through everything. They want to run your social security number because they're not expecting for you to pay for it in cash. Right. Yes. Right. So Bander says that you have to use your credit, good and bad and so forth. Okay, exactly. This whole life centers on having good credit. And what is a good credit score that we have? We're looking from anything from like, like 600s and up. So if you're at like 620, 650 and so forth. Right. Oh, yeah, right. The money. They said they would wonder. Of course, if you walked in a bank and if you walked in a car dealership here, let's say, you're going to go buy like, I don't know, I'm throwing it out like a Chevy there. And you walk in there and there's a $30,000 car and you walk in there with $30,000 cash. They're not even going to want that. They're going to tell you that you need to bring your deposit, or if you're paying for it, in a certified bank check, because again, they don't want to be involved in anything that's, God forbid, fraudulent. Right. Yeah, they want you to basically, show proof, show credit. Another thing that I want to touch on, speaking of buying cars, and Bolo, this is especially for you. If you go to get your car and so forth, and I mentioned this before, on your credit profile, they're going to use your social security number, right? And they're going to run your social security number through the credit bureaus. And when they run your social security number through the credit bureaus, they're going to basically see that, you know what, hey, listen, this person has this amount of money, this is their spending power. But when they run it, you get a lot of inquiries, because if you go to buy a car, they're not just going to run your credit profile through one dealership. I'm sorry, through one bank. They're going to run your credit profile through a lot of different places. Okay, a lot of different banks to see who's going to pick you up to help you finance or get that loan. So, and again, I think personally, with the game of credit, it's a great way to keep companies and to keep banks and credit card places in business. And for the person that doesn't have, it's called BVN in Nigeria. Okay, so right, like I said, I'm sure every country has their own system. For the person that doesn't have the $30,000 cash or doesn't have, a lot of money, and because they have good credit, which is what this live is, really about, talking about having good credit, because they have good credit, having good credit is like a reward. Okay, the bank verification number, right? We have our social security number. I know in other countries, like I know in the Caribbean, they have something called a TRN number, and people use that number to to apply for things or to do certain type of businesses. But here in the U.S., and I would imagine, I don't know if it's in UK or Canada, because I've never lived there. I don't know what their system is. They also have a number that they verify and see who you are, so that you could qualify for things. And it's good, because it's like, what I'm saying is, if you don't have a lot of like a lot of cash or a lot of money, and because you're good with paying your bills, you're good with your finances, right? You can definitely get credit, quote unquote. You get somebody to finance you. That's what having credit does, being able somebody to finance you. So I said yesterday on my live, I said, when you have good credit, it doesn't even matter what your salary is sometimes. You can basically buy anything. It's not like when you're in certain places, and if you're not rich or your family's not rich, you can't afford certain things. No, when you have good credit, especially you're here in the US, or I guess other countries, you can afford to buy anything that you want to buy, because your credit is basically a reward, right? It's like a reward for you managing your money well. So it's like what the bank is basically saying is like, okay, you've been paying your bills, you've been doing well. We're gonna keep you. Okay, we're gonna reward you by financing what you want to buy. And a lot of people that you see, well, I don't know, perhaps maybe if they lived in other places, it wouldn't have been that easy for them to buy certain things because they're not able to get financing. But again, credit allows you to get financing and buy the things that you were never able to buy because you have good credit. So it's a plus. It's really, really a plus. All right. The next myth that I want to talk about, when they say, that when you apply for credit, it ruins it. Um, right. One second, Bola. I'll address your question. Let me just jump on the point. The third one, they say that when you apply for a credit card, it ruins your what do you call it? It ruins your credit. Of course, whenever somebody runs your credit, your score is gonna go down a little bit. You're gonna get a little ding. But if they don't run your credit and they don't have criteria, how are they gonna know what you qualify for? No, you're good, Bola. Thank you. You're good. How are they gonna know what you qualify for? So that's just their requirement and their rule. They say if they run your credit, that your score is gonna go down a little bit. So that's a good point that was also brought up. On yesterday's live, we talked about two things. We talked about something called a soft pull and a hard pull. Right. Most times when you apply for stuff, especially a credit card, they do a soft pull. Or they say, when you're pre-qualified. When they do a soft pull, it doesn't affect your credit score. It doesn't affect your profile. Now, if that lender decides that they're going to grant you credit, okay, if they're going to grant you credit, some of them, depending what you're buying, they might do something else called a hard pull, and that's the one that that's the one basically that's going to allow you to qualify. But again, if you get a hard pull on the credit, it's going to make your score go down a little bit. But for me personally, and if I'm applying for something, and once they do a soft pull and they say, okay, hey Mel, listen, you can qualify. I don't care if the lender does a hard pull after, because basically by them pre-qualifying me before the soft pull, I know that for sure that I'm gonna get the product. So it's like in life, you got to give to receive. You get what I'm saying? You got to give to receive. So what they're asking you to give is this: they're saying, okay, let us pull your credit or let us pull whatever. But once we do it, this is what you're going to end up with. You're going to get the product. So to me, it's worth it. Right. Okay. So Bolu just made up a point. He said that, when you apply for credit, They check how much comes in versus how much you spend. So that is, again, I think you're referring to what we call our debt to income ratio. Of course, what you're making versus what you're spending is two different things. Okay, here again, like let's say you're, here in the US, if you're making $30,000 a year, you should not be spending 50,000. I know it sounds a little bit ridiculous to say you're making 30 but spending 50. What that simply means is that you're buying, or you're putting your expenditures where you can't afford it. You're paying for things that you're buying things that you can't afford. And so this is where people run into the negative, especially with their credit. So let's say, for example, you go out, you're making $30,000 a year US, right? And you go buy a car, you literally buy a car that's like the same price if you can qualify, because I don't think they're really going to let you qualify, but I'm just throwing numbers out. If it's not a car, it could be whatever you buy, clothes, I don't know, furniture, whatever it is you buy. But if you're spending more than you're making, you're going to be in the negative. Think about it. Right. How can you, if you have $30,000, how can you buy something that's 50,000? You're going to be negative 20,000, right? If you do the math. Right. You ask about backup business. So that's also another good point. As long as the business is making money, right? I had a gentleman on the live yesterday, and the gentleman was saying that if you're to have credit, he said, "Thank you, Bander. I appreciate your support." The gentleman said, "What if I have something called business credit? With, like you said, Bolo, that's backed up by my business." That's a whole different line, because business credit, or anything that's backed by your business, goes by, your business being registered. It goes by your business having an LLC. What I'm really referring to here is personal credit. I'm really referring to like personal credit, like what you do with your social security number. And I made a point yesterday in saying to the gentleman that, listen, if you have if you have personal credit, you still have to keep your personal credit good, because many times when you apply for business credit, they do something called PG, or personal guarantee. So although they say, hey, it's business credit, we're not going to qualify you based off of your personal credit. Listen, they look at your personal credit and they see again how you manage money. Remember, business credit is big. If you get a regular personal credit card, the average person, maybe on it they give you like 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, even something as small, $500, like 500 USD, right? I'll answer your question once again. It's personal credit different from business credit. Yes, I'll answer you in a second. If your personal credit isn't good, where you're not managing, you're not revolving your trade lines, you're not paying your bills on time, business credit, people that do business credit, they're not going to qualify you for business credit. The only difference with personal credit and business credit is that business credit is separated by the way it's reported. So here, personal credit is reported to three major credit bureaus. We have the TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. That's where your personal credit is reported to each month. Hence, you get the credit score, right? But business credit is reported to a different place. I forgot the exact name of where they report your business credit, but you get a totally different score. So, for example, Bolu asked a question. He said, "Is personal credit different from business credit?" Yes, it is. Business credit, you tend to get more, and it's reported to a different place. Right. And business credit is based on your business. So in other words, like let's say, okay, there's a company called American Express, Amex, right? That's a company that gives a lot of business credit. In order for you to qualify to get any type of credit through those people, or and there's other companies, but I'm just using Amex as an example. They're gonna look at your business bank account. Business credit is mostly based off your business bank account. In other words, can you show the bank, that the place that you're applying for business credit, that you literally have a business and it's generating income and it makes sense for them to give you their money? Right. So if you want to do, okay, Bander's right. American Express, yes, they have business credit, but it's really hard. Right. Another place that offers like business line of credits, like you have PayPal that does business line of credits. And like, let's say, for example, like you have like a little small side business. I don't care what you do. Like, let's say you're a barber, and I'm just throwing something out there. And if you set it up where you have a PayPal account, when people pay you, you can have people just PayPal you. PayPal looks at the amount of transactions that you're doing. And when they see, like, because everybody likes, let me tell you about banks. Banks like when money come in. Banks like when money come in. That's it. They just want money to come in. They don't care. They're not big on money going out. They just want the money to come in. So what I was saying is, when you apply for business credit and you have the business bank statements, not your personal statement, your business bank statements, You have the business records. They look at how, right. They exactly, they look at exactly how much is coming into your bank account, into your business bank account. And that's how you get business credit. And of course, to get business credit, you have to have your business for a while. It has to be seasoned. Again, I can't give you an exact number how long you have to get it, because every bank, is different with business credit. They all have different requirements. I did I did a video. I don't know. Yeah, I think I did a long form video, and I talked about banks that were giving money away. And to be quite honest, I looked at it. I don't know if the video wasn't pushed through enough through the algorithm. I don't know if people weren't interested. But to me, I thought it was such a good video, because if you're there and you're strapped for cash and so forth, all you had to do is just literally go to a bank and open some personal checking accounts. All you had to do is open a personal checking account, make a few deposit if you want to revolve them. See, you got to be wise how you spend the money. What people don't understand is that you got to move your money in different places. Also on my channel, I also did a video, and I mean, it's the live, so I can't really link a video now, but I think when I go back and I look at this video, I'm gonna like link this exactly in this live. You have to have multiple and different bank accounts. I don't understand people that just have one bank account. So you mean to tell me that what if the one bank goes down, or the one bank they're having electronic problems or whatever? That means you can't get your money, right? Right, right. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, you got to invest in different places. You got to move your money around. And those are the things that I talk about, especially with the game of credit. Banks like to see that you revolve, like you move credit around, you move your money around. I give an example that if you have a credit card, whether it's a business credit card or you have a personal credit card, if you have a card, let's say, okay, since we're on the topic of business credit cards, if you have a business credit card and you use that business credit card to maybe buy supplies for the company, they want you to spend the money. They want for you to spend the money. But here's the thing, like I said, whether business or personal credit, you gotta pay the money back. You have to pay the money back. Once you pay the money back and so forth, they know that they could trust you, and that's how you open it up. Bolo, I also want to tell you too, being that you touched on business credit, the amounts that you get for business credit are far bigger than what you get for personal credit. So if let's say for example, like you was able to get a business credit card for your business, whatever it is. On a business credit card, maybe you get a $10,000 limit, right? Versus when you open a personal credit card, you only get like $1,000 or $2,000 limit. Because remember, businesses have expenses, right? They have a lot of expenditures. They have a lot of things that they have to pay for. So the limits that you get on business credit cards are different and better, right? Exactly. Businesses have more profit and they have bigger expenses. You, a person with their personal credit, taking their credit card because you want to buy clothes. I'm just throwing something out there. You want to travel. You don't even need those things. But we're human beings and we do those things. But when you have a business, you have costs, you have people to pay, you have supplies to buy. The credit limit is going to be bigger. And you have people that open businesses and just get business credit cards because they find that it's better to revolve and they build it up better. Now, here's the thing with business credit cards. When you have business credit cards, you still got to pay your bills back. Business or personal, you still got to pay your bills back. But again, you get better and higher limits with business credit cards. And of course, when you're running a business, you got to keep it professional. You got to do your taxes. You got to file. You got to show where you're spending your money and exactly how you're using it. Because again, there's a famous saying that documentation beats communication. Okay? You can't go in there and verbally tell the bank, oh, listen, I bought this and I bought that. They're going to be like, okay, great. Show us on your accounting. Show us your sheet. Right. Show us exactly what you did. Okay? So I think we're up to number 3. When we talked about, applying for a credit card ruins your credit. No, it doesn't. Yes, you get a few dings on your score. Whatever. Your score might go down a little bit, whether personal or business, but who cares? If you can apply and you're going to get those rates, it's a wonderful tool. Right. Yes. Oh yeah, you got to keep records of business. Listen, I don't go anywhere, and if I go somewhere to buy, I always take my receipt. Like even like here in the U.S. when I go to pay for stuff, and a lot of people are doing things digital. They're like tapping their phones to pay, and everything is virtual. But I'm old fashioned. I'm a woman in my 40s. I'm an adult, and the good old-fashioned ways worked for years. I don't see what the difference is. I know that it's a technological age that we live in, and a lot of people are doing everything virtual or digital, but I'm sorry, I still need a receipt. You know why I like a receipt? Because it shows track, it shows record. A lot of times when I get my receipts, Mander says, hide the levels of credits banks, right? Yeah, everything is technological. When I get my receipts, yes, I get a paper receipt, but I also have them text. You know, I have my receipts text or emailed to me that I always have a copy. Because you know, the funny thing is, those paper receipts, they fade out after a while. They get crumpled in your pocket. You wash them with your clothes. You throw them out. So you end up with like nothing on the receipts. You get what I'm saying? You end up with nothing on it. So yes, I think this is when I think it's good to text, and I think it's good to what do you call it? You know, send it virtually. Yes, it definitely works. All right. Yes, yes. I like to have records of everything for sure. Bola said that it's good to have a record of your product. Of course. I mean, what if you bought the product and the product is defective and you have to return the product? Right, right. What if you have to return the product? Yes, 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 yes. Yeah, anywhere, any store, Walmart. What do we have here? Walmart, Target, all of them. Just it doesn't matter where you shop. Just get your receipts. Right. All right. So we hit three. Um, you're asking about well, you're asking about like when you do returns. Um, when you do returns, like I return stuff all the time. Sometimes I return like the God forbid it's broken. Sometimes the product doesn't fit or the it doesn't work, depending what it is that I buy. I just bring my receipt. And you know, like any receipts, they give you like a certain amount of time. They give you like, 30 days or 60 days, and they'll put if it's defective that they won't take it. But yes, you can return it. You can definitely return it. For sure. You can return as long as you have your receipt. Yeah. Well, they don't ask for your account. They just ask for the receipts. Like let's say like I went to let's say I went to Macy's, the mall, and I bought clothing. I bought a shirt. And let's say, I changed my mind. I don't want it. It doesn't fit. There's something defective. All I have to do is just really bring back the receipt within a certain time and bring the merchandise, providing that it's not damaged. And they just issue you your return. They could send it back to your card, and or they could give you the cash depending how you do it. But most likely, most times, again, very very technological, very digital. They send it back to your card. Right. That's how they do the receipts here. So let me quickly jump into number 4. Okay. So the other myth that they talk about when they say you only need one credit card, that's also false. Now, some people only like to have one credit card because it's easier for them to manage, and in other words, it's a way for them not to overspend if they only have one, right? But if your credit is good and you know how to manage your money, there's nothing wrong with having more than one credit card. I mean, having good credit is a reward, right? It's an excellent reward. Having good credit, again, allows you, security. Let's say, God forbid, you run short, you run in a jam. You have your credit cards that you can basically borrow from your credit cards. I always talk about, especially, on my channel, that we live in a time and an age where we don't need to be running to people to let people know exactly when we're down or we're financially strapped. Listen, when you got that credit card, all you gotta do is just you just gotta borrow from your credit card. Okay? When you're opening a credit card, a lot of time these lenders, they'll ask you in the application, do you plan on using the credit card to do cash advances? They love when you do cash advances because basically what they do is this. Again, when you do advance, they charge you like a certain interest rate. They charge you for borrowing their money. But for me personally, if I'm broke or if I'm run down, I'd rather go to my credit card. If I need $100 and if I got a credit card that has like maybe like 1,000 on it, or I always use 1,000, it's easier for me to go withdraw $100 off my $1,000 credit card and call somebody up and ask to borrow. People are mean. People are mean. People are cruel. People are cold. People laugh at you. So I always try to motivate people on my channel. I always encourage people to try to have their own. I tell people all the time on this channel, I say, please have and develop a relationship with your bank. Whether it's your bank where you make your deposits or the bank that has your credit cards, have a relationship with them. So when you're down, you can go to them and borrow. Stop calling people. Stop telling people when you're down. Stop trying to borrow money from people. You're wasting your time. And one of the biggest ways or the best ways that people borrow money is when they use their credit cards. So that's why I always encourage and urge people to have and try to have good credit. Because once you have good credit and you have your credit cards, listen, nobody could turn you back. Nobody could treat you bad. Nobody can deny you. And the other funny thing is, if you try to borrow from your credit cards, okay, if you don't qualify, they don't allow you to do it. Only the bank knows. Okay? Right. Vander says millionaires have 10 to 50 business credit cards. Exactly. That is such an excellent point. You know, I don't want to make a statement and say that it's people that don't have money, but people that don't have money are so afraid to take risks. Okay? Sorry, I'm a little thirsty. They are so afraid of taking risks. That's why rich people have money, because they borrow. They borrow and use one debt or one money to supply another or pay for another. It's called flipping money. That's what people that have money do. They'll take money from here, and when they take money from here, they use it to cover money something else over there. Let's talk about money in borrowing money in the game of real estate. On two of my previous lives, I think two lives before, we talked about when you're buying a house, right? Right, yes, investment. We talked about buying a house. And I had a gentleman on the live yesterday that said that he had 50 properties, 50 investment properties, literally. It was very good. I mean, this was a great live. And the gentleman said, listen, how I did it, he said, the first loan that I got was something called an FHA loan, first time home buyers loan. We only put 3.5%. Now it's 3.5%. A couple years ago, it used to be 3%, but times change. We're in a different time now. 3.5%. And he literally kept that house for a while. Right. Real estate. Okay, Bola says, what is real estate news? Real estate is basically housing. Right. Yeah, real estate, it's everywhere. Where you are in Nigeria, they call it land, or they buy plots, right? Like you might see a land, and if you buy land, it might say plot, I don't know, plot 2,500 in Lagos or something. I don't know. Right. You have to, yeah. So real estate or housing, right. It doesn't matter where you live. I don't care if you live in the U.S., you live in India, you live in Nigeria, you live in Pakistan, you live in Russia. Everybody needs places to live. Okay? Everybody needs places to live. So what I'm basically saying is this, people that have money, they flip money. So what I was saying was that the gentleman, he said, listen, once I bought that first home and I was making, and I was paying whatever. Yep, exactly. They're smarter. And I was paying for that home. I basically took money. It's called equity. I took money out of that property and I used that equity to buy another property. Okay, because when you're buying a second home, you put down more money. So for example, the first home, if you buy the first home with the FHA, now as we are in 2025, they're looking for 3.5%. Exactly, Vander. But let's say a year from now you want to buy another property, an investment property. I think investment properties, they want you to put on, what is it, like 20%? They want you to put like 20% of what the cost of the home is. In other words, remember, with an investment property, like, you're going to make more money, right? It's for money. So again, the banks have to make their money. So, they're going to put requirements for you to go by. Right. But I would tell anybody, again, if you want to start, you start with that FHA loan, work on it. If you decide that you want to grow, you want to get a second home, then you go for a different mortgage. They have mortgages for investors, and they also have mortgages, conventional mortgages. That was what last night's live was about, or was it two lives? I don't remember, but it was, it was talking about like different types of mortgages that you can get. But Bolo, to what you said, like, I mean, sky's the limit. You can make so much money. I know in Nigeria, there's a billionaire. I think his name is Dangote, and so forth. And right, yeah, oh yeah, that's how rich people live. They live off of loans. Rich people don't go out there and work and live, paycheck to paycheck the way regular hard work, day-to-day working people do. It's called OPM, other people's money. They live off other people's money or other loans. And what I was saying about that billionaire, what is it, Dangote? Like, okay, right, yeah, he's rich. he's a major, he's a billionaire from what I hear, and so forth. How did he make his money? Right. Dangote, yeah, right, but he's a billionaire. I'm sure, he's making deals all over the place, all over the world. Because the thing with rich people, he does a lot of investing money, right? That's the difference with rich people. Oh, sugar is good. And what about oil? Oil is good too, right? Rich people spend money. Cement, of course. Rich people spend money. They don't just keep their money. They take risk. That's the difference with rich people. Oh, oil, of course. Nigeria is famous for its oil. Right, right. Indomine, I don't know what that one is. Rent, buy more apartments. Okay. Yes. Olubander said that, that it's good for somebody to rent for a year and then later buy more apartments. Right. You could do it either way. If you started, oh, like Indomie noodles. Okay, okay. I've heard of Indomie noodles. Yes, I have a friend that, yes, Bowl, I've heard of Indomie noodles. I have a friend that loves it. Her children loves it. I know it. I know exactly what it is. Right. Okay. So he invested in Indomie noodles. Okay, that's good to know. Right. Right. But you understand what I'm saying? Bander was saying a good point. He said, you could rent for a year and then buy more apartments. You're right. You could do whatever you want. I mean, like I said, if you start with that FHA, there's a certain time that you have to live in that house, right, Bander? You have to live in, if you buy your first house with FHA and so forth. And then later you decide what you want to do. You decide if you want to continue living there or, if you want to invest and get another property. But the thing about it is people have to be wise. You have to be wise. You have to know how to spend your money. You have to know exactly like where you want to put it. Where like Bolo said, you have to know where you want to invest your money. Okay? When you have money, a lot of people take risk with their money, and that's how they make other money. And I call it flipping money. It's like right now, if I have like $1 million, I'm not just gonna let it sit there. Like I'm gonna find something to put my millions. I could end up with 2 or 10 million. That's how it works. All right, let's jump into the last one that I want to talk about. This is number 5, right? I have my list here. That's what I'm looking at. The other myth that they say that debit cards help to build credit the way credit cards do. Now, let's make sure whoever's people in this life like they understand how credit and debit cards work. So when you debit is directly drawn from your bank account, right? So when it's directly withdrawn from your bank account, that's not reporting to the credit bureaus. It's not reporting to the bureaus. Right. But when you do credit, okay, credit is reported to those 3 credit bureaus. It's reported to Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. So when you spread it, when you spend your credit card, you use that. That is sent over to the bureaus. That information, I call it the credit report card when they report to the bureaus. But when you debit, whatever you have, let's say like you're a member of Bank of America, you have a Bank of America debit card, right? And if you have a Bank of America debit card, that debit card, once you use it, it's just literally drawn from your hard-earned cash. Okay, if you have your check that comes into your checking account, your direct deposit checking account, and you spend the money, that is what is being withdrawn. Okay, it doesn't build your credit. Right. Bander said, yeah, still talking about the beauty of the FHA loans. So credit and debit are 2 separate things. As much as I talk about building credit, but I like debit because, again, I'm old fashioned the way that I grew up. My thing is if you don't have it, don't spend it. Don't create or make unnecessary debt that you can't do it, that you can't pay for. So with a debit card, when I use my debit card, I know that it's directly from my bank account, and I know for sure that I'm using my own money, that I'm not making purchases that I can't afford. Okay? And simple, if I don't have it, I just don't buy it. But with a credit card, some people know they don't have any money. Right. Yeah, yes. Bolu said, I guess credit score makes you get more chances to get loans. Yes, that's exactly it. When you have a credit profile, you have a credit score, right? When you have a credit profile and a credit score, that is what allow you to get more loans, right? Well, I'm glad you mentioned it. I just want to piggyback on something because yesterday's live, I have it written here. Yesterday's live was called, Credit 101, the basics of credit. And on Credit 101, what I did was I basically broke down the 5 things that make up your credit profile, that basically makes up your credit report. And this is just an FYI, I'm just reviewing this. Um, so these are the things that makes up your credit score with the credit bureaus here in the US. All right, the first thing is your payment history. And again, that's what I was talking about most in this live, how you pay back. That is actually 35%. First of all, it's a full 100%. But there's a breakdown of all of it. The first one is the credit history. Shows how you've been paying, shows if you've been paying your bills on time, shows if you're paying your bills late. It shows, if you pay good sometimes or you pay mediocre at other times. It shows if you never pay at all. It's basically a history, it's a reporting of what you're doing with your money, right? Over time or each month. Okay? So that's the biggest part of your credit profile is your payment history. The second one that was on it for making it right, this is amazing, right? What I'm saying is like they watch you. A lot of people get credit cards, and when they get credit cards, they just sit there with those cards and they just spend it. And they're like, oh, I'll pay it back, whatever. They don't think about it. Yeah. What are you asking? If you pay before your due date? Well, that's wise. If you have it. I had a gentleman on the live yesterday when I was talking about what makes up the big five for for credit reporting. The gentleman said he pays his credit cards every week when he makes his money. I mean, he's fortunate, that's good for him. But what I'm saying is, like, if I have my credit card, let's say I always use $1,000, I have my $1,000 credit card, and I spend like $100. When the statement comes, I just send the whole 100. Yup. And what do I buy my credit cards? Like, I might buy gas, for my car, or I might buy, some coffee or whatever. I'm just saying, like, simple little things. Maybe I'll do groceries, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. I just pay it. Right. But it's a very good idea to pay before the due date, and it's a good idea to pay everything off by the due date. And even yesterday, again, the gentleman made a good point. He said he had somebody that was paying everything off. Right, he was paying everything off. Within those couple of months that he was paying everything off, his credit score went up, literally into the 700s. Because remember, it's every 30 days that they're reporting to the bureau. So if you show that you're paying your bills consistently, it goes up. And I also want to add to that, Bola, what you missed yesterday. Let's say, for example, you've been paying your card and your score is going up, it's elevating. Let me tell you how tricky this system works. If you've been paying it, and God forbid, 1 month, you missed the payment, and your payment's late, and they report that, the credit card company reported to the bureau, your score goes down. And I don't mean your score goes down like 10 points. I've heard of people, I've seen people where they've gotten their scores go down like 100 points for being late on a payment or missing a payment. So I think it's a good idea, if you have it, to pay before it's due. Right. You're only protecting, your credit. You're only protecting, your score. Because sometimes when you hold on to money that you could have paid your bill, you end up paying for stuff that you didn't even need anyway, or unnecessary things. It's like you pay now to earn later, right? Or you pay now to have better satisfaction in the end. It's like you make a sacrifice now. Again, it's another thing I always talk about on my channel, making sacrifices. What's the sacrifice? Paying your credit card bill off earlier and quicker. So that way you can get better increases, or bigger increases for that matter. Yeah, it's good. And the second one that we talked about was the utilization. Right. We talked about that they only want you to utilize they only want you to spend 30% of the card. Okay, they want you to stay under 30%. So again, the big 1,000, that's my favorite number. If I have $1,000, I'm not spending more than $300 of that credit card. And even if I spend more, I'm going to make sure that I'm able to pay it off in the end. Right? But try to keep your utilization low. I've had people say to me, and I've even read it, where people say, okay, they recommend 30%. Some people say don't even spend more than 10%. I don't know about that. This is where finance gets personal. People know what's in their pockets, and they have to decide what and how much they want to spend. That's the thing. Whether or not somebody's going to spend 30% or 10%, it's up to them, but I wouldn't go over the 30. That's a recommendation. They also talked about how long you've had credit history. right? The length of the credit history, and that makes up 15%. That's also big, but the biggest one was definitely the utilization at 30. The length is 15%. And what does that mean? You know, lenders like longevity, lenders like consistency, lenders like history. They want to know that you've had credit for a couple years well, and you've been paying your bills for a couple years well. They don't want to know that you've had a credit card for, 6 weeks or even 6 months, and the 6 months that you've had the credit card, it closed, you ran it up or it charged off. Yeah. Oh yeah. Thank you so much, Bolo. You said I've learned a lot from your live stream. Yeah. What I'm doing is I'm doing a series on credit because um, again, I was making content for my channel. You know how this YouTube game goes. Trying to see what really matters and what the masses want to hear. And I find that a lot of people, I'm even on Instagram and I'm having people reaching out to me asking me about credit because, I know about credit. It's what runs, or it's what drives everything here. Everything is credit, right? You can't buy anything without credit. And Bolu, I mean, we always talk, we always chat. I mean, you could always, contact me. We could talk. I could teach you and show you a few things. I'd love to do it. I mean, I've learned a lot from your channel also, and so forth. You're very creative, very artistic. I mean, you're the one that, basically taught me how to make, nice, effective thumbnails. So I thank you for that. Like, you have been absolutely spectacular. But yes, and who knows? I'm even thinking about, like, maybe I'm going to have, like, like a credit workshop where people could literally sign up to join the credit workshop. I mean, I'm not, I don't charge a lot. Probably charge a small fee that we could sit and literally talk about how to clean up our credit, how to qualify for mortgages and so forth. It's very easy workshops because a lot of people don't know about credit. They don't know about, utilization. They don't know about history. They don't know about that whole mix of credit. They don't know what to do. And even, this is basically a second part. Even yesterday, the gentleman was saying on the live that a lot of people don't learn about money. Money, credit, investing, real estate, they do not teach us those things in schools. Well, if you're going for a higher level degree and you're going for like a master's, when you're an adult, of course you could take those courses. But I'm talking about going to a regular um, elementary. Yes, that Bander, you're welcome. I enjoy this. I love this. This is even the reason why I even started my channel because money has, I'm not going to say it's been an enemy of mine, but before, money was something that, money used to control me, but now I control my money. I don't let money, control me anymore. I like to have my money. I like to enjoy my money, but at the same time, it's like I'm not going to be a prisoner of my own money where I can't spend or I do what I want to do. It's too difficult. Right. We have to have an open mind. Yes, Bolu, they didn't teach us a lot of things. They taught us everything else, but the things that we really, some of the things that we really need in life, like, budgeting our money, balancing our money, you know, what I learned about money growing up is I always heard my parents say, you know, you don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul. Right. That's what ends up happening to a lot of people in the end. They rob Peter to pay Paul because they never learned about money. A lot of people never learned that, okay, when I get paid, that I should pay myself first before I pay all my bills or my housing expenses. People never learned that, you know what, I should pay myself, hey, if it's even to give myself $100 when I get paid, and just put that aside because, stuff happens, God forbid, maybe you can't work. People lose jobs, companies close. A lot of us didn't learn stuff like that. But even with me on this channel, like I take my time because like this is something that I'm so passionate about. And a lot of people are basically like, struggling, or they're upset, or they're feeling not upset, but they're frustrated because they don't know a lot of things about money or how to spend money. And even from this live today, I think I'm gonna definitely, now that I think about it, I might just possibly try to run some workshop on building up credit. I think it'll be a good workshop. A lot of people, would want to learn and so forth, and maybe do the link. It'll be good. whether it's credit, whether it's real estate, it's housing. Like I'm basically, teaching you or teaching people about cleaning up stuff like that. So it's good. It's a really wonderful thing. Bolo, I want to ask you: are you interested in learning about how credit works? Exactly where you are, where you're located in Nigeria. You're interested in learning about that? Because if you're interested, I'm sure Again, I don't know how it works there, but I'm sure you could always Google or find out from the financial people, like, how credit really works and runs there. It's got to be there. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. Bander, any more questions on money, books, credit, anything that you want to discuss? Right. Any more ideas? Tomorrow I'm gonna also be, conducting the live. I'm gonna do another series on credit. I'm gonna continue the series on credit. I'm gonna talk about exactly how credit works, exactly how much money you have to put down for certain things, how to qualify for credit, how to get good credit basically, how to elevate your score, the tricks and the secrets of, getting your score high, because at the end of the day all we want to do is just get our scores up higher, right? And if we can get our scores up higher, I mean, you can buy anything you want. The only time that you can't really buy what you want is when your score is lower. Yes, you're welcome, Mander. No problem. All the time you can't buy is when your score is lower. And we don't want to keep low scores. Right. We don't want to be in the red. We want to be as high as possible. You know what? It's even funny because a lot of people that have good credit, like a lot of these people, like they're even buying real estate. They're able to buy things in different countries. What about all these millionaires that have like houses, like, in the islands and different countries? And I'm not talking about like celebrities. I'm talking about like, just regular people that have their money. Because one thing with money is that the goal is that we want to level up and we want to make our money. But when we have our money, we want to also be able to spend our money. We want to spend our money in places that will definitely like let us see what we achieved. Okay? Right. Vander says that we have to have an open mind. Of course. Of course. I've always had an open mind. Once you know, everything in life is wisdom. And I think wisdom comes with like age and it comes with maturity. The way that I think now, I didn't think that way. I want to even say even maybe 10 years ago, I didn't think that way. But, as you get older and, you become more mature and things start to fall into place better. You realize, let's say, for example, with money, right, what you spent many years ago, you don't spend it the same way again. You can't when you're an adult, unless you still want to, be a small child mentally, but you still have to, be careful how you spend your money. So yes, it makes sense. Bander says they use permanence only. I'm not really sure of what that is. I'm not really sure what permanence, or are you talking about permits to buy in other places? I'm not. Okay, okay. They buy unit apartments. Of course, when they invest in real estate, they buy houses or apartments and they make business out of it. No, you're good. Nothing to be sorry, but I just wasn't really clear or understanding what you meant. But okay, apartments. Yes, they buy apartments. They buy houses. Another form of how they buy condominiums. I mean, they buy a lot of things. I would think like even in those countries or in those islands, like a lot of people that you say, right. Yeah. Bolu said, thank you for your time, and I will do shout out for you so you can get more visibility. Yes. All right. Have a good evening. I know you are. I think you're 6 hours ahead of us here in the U.S. So I think it's probably like after 1 or 2. So have a good night. Take care. I'll see you on your next video, Bolu, and I'll be sure to leave a comment. Thank you so much. I'll be sure to definitely leave something there. But once I'm live again, yes, you were wonderful. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on your live. I'll see you on yours because I love your content also. Very very informative and very helpful also. So we'll definitely catch up. Go get some rest. Thank you so much. Yes, thank you. I do appreciate it. So yeah. So Bander, Bolu, I think Bolu dropped off and so forth. Just to recap, we talked about the 5 myths of credit. First myth was that, that you should be carrying a balance to help your score. No. Second myth is that you should close your credit cards once you pay them off. Nope, myth. Third one is that that when you apply for cards, it ruins your credit score. Myth. No, you just get a little ding. Fourth is that you only need one credit card. That's also a myth. It's always good to have more than one. You need to, extend your credit. That's great. And the next one is that the last myth is that debit cards also build up your credit profile, your credit report, just like credit cards. That's not true. Debit cards is you just debit, just like it says. You take it away. Credit cards, you spend, you borrow, you build over time. All right. So with that said, people, I thank you so much for joining me on this live. We'll pick up our series tomorrow on credit. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Okay, we're out. See you in the next live. Okay. Yes, thank you. Have a good evening. Bye bye. Hello. Good evening, everyone. Hope everybody's doing well. Just making a few adjustments here. My name is Mel. Welcome to Team U Finance. And for today, we are continuing with our credit series. So the name of today's series is basically Credit 101, and we're talking about the Big Five. And the Big Five is basically what makes up your credit report. Okay? The Big Five is how the credit bureaus give you a score, right? The things that make it up. So I'm just going to wait a few more minutes and see, how much people join me, who's on the live. If not, I'll just, continue talking about the Big Five. Okay. So just to start, I guess I could retouch when someone decides, to get on, but let's start. So we all know that credit is a tool. And when I say that it's a tool, credit is a financial tool. And the first step in changing anything or gaining any type of financial freedom is to have a tool or something that allows us to build wealth. So the first thing that we have to do to start to try to build wealth, if you're not at that level, is we have to clean up our credit. So for today's live, again, as I said, I want to talk about that financial tool and how that tool is used to basically clean up your finances or clean up your credit profile. So I'm going to be giving you the 5 things that basically make up your credit profile, the 5 things that comprise your score, the 5 things that give you that credit report card. Okay? So let's see. The first thing that we want to start, and I always make a list because I don't want to shortchange you and miss anything out, so we could discuss each of them. So we're gonna break down what each of these things consist of. So let's talk about the Big Five. All right. The first one that we want to talk about is our payment history. And for each of these histories, I'm going to give you the percentage of what it comprises. So for your payment history, you need to have at least, not at least, but your payments need to be on time. So your payment history makes up 35% of your credit profile. Again, that's 35%. So let's talk about how the payment history works. All right. Good evening, Starlight. Thank you for joining. If you're just coming on, Iomid, thank you for joining. If you're just coming on today, we're talking about Credit 101, and we're talking about how you can, basically use credit as a tool to financial freedom. So for those of you that are just joining, the first thing that I'm going to touch on of the Big Five, and again, this is the Big Five in credit, the 5 things that make up your credit profile. So the first thing that I have is your payment history. Now, when you have your payment history is 35% of your credit profile. What does a payment history means? Payment history is basically, when lenders look at how you pay your bills. Do you pay on time? Every month, when you have, have your bills due, you're supposed to pay it on time. The credit card companies or your loan give you enough time to pay it. Okay? So when you have enough time to to look at your payments, They want to make sure that you send your money in on time, and that's your payment history. So with that, that is basically talking about if you're paying on time. Okay, it's talking about if your payment history, is on time. That's 35% of it. Because again, when lenders see that you're able to pay your bills on time, they're more likely to trust you and to give you loans or to give you credit cards. Right. Um, they don't like any type of lapses in anything. They don't like late payments. They don't like delayed payments. They just want you to pay your bills on time. So that's the first one of the big five. Okay. The second one of the big five is your credit utilization. Now, this one I love. And why it's so important because a lot of people think that when they, have a credit card, that they could just use it, like they use all of it. For example, let's say you have a new credit card and the bank gives you $1,000 for your credit limit. Although you have $1,000, which you are allowed to use and you can use for your credit, they don't really want you using the whole $1,000. They want you to utilize a certain amount. They want you to be under a certain percentage. So for your credit utilization, when you have a card, they're looking for you to utilize 30% on your credit card. Okay? 30% is the most that they're looking to use. Now, some people might come back and say, well, you know what? Although they said I could use 30%, um, why not try or why not, use a lower percentage? Because when you use a certain amount, this is what helps your credit score to revolve. So with the 30%, it's basically how much you spend versus, your limit. All right. So I always give the number. Let's say you have, hi, cool kid, 111. Thank you for joining. Really good to see you. Thank you so much. Right. Okay. Thank you, Kobe. Good to see you. So for your utilization, as I said, it's only going to be 30%. So for example, let's say you have $1,000. Now, what's 30% of $1,000? 30% of $1,000 is basically $300. That is on or about how much you are supposed to spend, about the amount that they want you to spend. Now, are you going to just spend the 30%? I mean, people have situations, people have emergencies, so they might end up spending more money. But here's the kicker. If you spend more than the 30%, it would be advisable for you to basically pay more. Okay? So yesterday I was doing a live and a gentleman was saying that when he, uses his credit card, he tries to stay under, he tries to go like 10% of it. And even if he uses more, the gentleman says, listen, I pay it right away. I paid it literally every week. Or if I go in a store and let's say I spend more than the 30% that they want me to utilize, what I do is I literally pay the money. I pay it back in cash, but I use my credit cards to basically revolve it to show the lenders that you know how to manage money. So that is number two of the big five. It's your credit utilization. All right. They only want you to spend basically 30% of what your credit limit is. All right. So that's pretty good. Now, the other thing that they look up at the big five, number three, they look at the length of your credit history. Your credit history is basically how long you've had your accounts. How long, what's basically the age of your accounts. So let's give some examples. Let's say, for example, you go to buy a car. And I always use the car because a lot of people, that's when credit really counts for a lot of people. Let's say you go to buy a car. They're looking at how long you've been revolving credit, how many trade lines have been on that credit account for how many years. So the longer credit history that you have, where you have like stable accounts, stable trade lines, whether it be a loan, anything like that, a stable credit history being reported, this is when they look at you as having a good credit history. Okay, you have a lot of age on your credit, right? So if you've had your credit for a while or your credit history for a while, and you're not, you're not having any delinquencies on your credit, everything is moving along, it's going to be much easier for you to qualify because again, it shows that you can be trusted and it also shows that you know how to manage your money. That is the length of a credit history. All right. So far we've talked about three for the big five for credit. And again, this is credit 101. We talked about a payment history and we said that our payment history should be at least 35%. Okay. 100%, 35% of your credit profile is your payment history. All right. The second 30% is going to be your credit utilization. Basically, how you're using that credit card. All right. If you have $1,000, are you using the whole $1,000? Are you using $600? And then when you get your bill, you're literally just paying the minimum. And speaking of the minimum, I want to talk about that. Now, a lot of people can only afford to pay the minimum back. But if you have a credit card and you utilize more than that 30% and you find that you can definitely pay some more back, why not? It's only going to help you more, and it's only going to boost your score. And again, it's going to show the lender or that credit card company, even the credit bureaus, that you knew how to pay back and you knew how to manage your money. So it is definitely, definitely good to pay it on time and utilize either lower. And if you end up utilizing more, you understand, you're encouraged to pay it back. All right, so those are the three. We also talked about the credit history, talked about the age of the credit. All right, your credit history makes it makes sense. A lot of people like to, not people, a lot of lenders like to look that you have a history. They want to know that you've been able to manage your money for a long time. Okay, they want to make sure that if they lend money to you, that you're going to be paying it back on time. They have days or they have time limits that they set for you to pay it back. Now, generally, if you have a credit card and you take more out, you end up basically paying, I think, every 30 days, your bill is due, whatever it is. And when your bill is due, they'll show you like the annual percentage rate that they're making on it. So again, if you have the money, you can do it. Why not just pay? Thank you, Alkaline. Thank you. Why not just pay more than you can? It's only going to help you. It's only going to let your credit profile grow more. All right, perfect. So those are the three things. Now, let's talk about the credit mix. We all know what a mix is. A mix is a bunch of things comprised together. So although I told you that I'm going to be giving you 5 things of the big 5 that makes up your credit profile, in the middle of that is your credit mix. Can anybody tell me like what they think the mix would be, or how you take it as somebody says, let's see how your credit mix is? Okay. So your credit mix is basically all the things that are on your credit, all the mixes of different things. All right. Your credit mix can be your credit cards. It could be a mixture of your loans. It could be a mixture of like utility accounts that are reported, because now a lot of companies report utility accounts also. Many years ago, or gone are days where it was just strictly credit cards and loans. Now companies are actually reporting how you pay your utility bills. I mentioned in previous lives that, if you needed like a mix, you need like a trade line. I talked about Kickoff having that great trade line and allowing you to put different things, and there's different rates that you could start. Again, when you can show a lender that you have different mixes or different accounts that you can manage wisely, you can manage well financially, they'll say, okay, this person knows exactly what they're doing. Okay, so that's how you end up with having a mix on your credit. So some things to mix with. You can mix with credit cards. You can mix with a car / your auto. You can mix with utility bills. If you are a homeowner, you could, show them reporting of your mortgage. And again, they also have mixes if you rent. You have places that literally report to the credit bureaus when you pay your rent on time. They allow you to mix any and everything, basically, to get those scores up. Because at the end of the day, when you go and try to qualify for anything, whoever's going to lend you the money wants to know that you've had trade lines and you've had accounts revolving on your credit. You've shown some stability. This is not really a society where they just take cash all the time. Like a lot of places don't even want cash. They want everything in credit, or they want you to qualify for things. Now, the secret to why they wanted to do it, I have no idea. But from where we live, doesn't really matter where you are. Everything is a credit-run society. All right? Everything is credit. So you end up building your credit better when you have a mix of things on your credit profile. And, credit is not something where I feel like you literally have a choice. Because anything that you want to buy, as long as you have credit established, it makes you qualify for those things more. It's easier for you to qualify. But If you don't have credit, you're not going to easily qualify for those items or for those things that you want to buy. And on the live that I was at last night, I was talking about, qualifying for a mortgage, having credit and being able to qualify for a mortgage. That was like the hardest thing that a lot of people have to do. Okay. I talked about a lady that ended up, having to get a few trade lines, basically get on somebody's credit card as an authorized user because her credit score was really, really low. And when I say low, she was literally in the 500. So she had to basically get on somebody's card so they could, whenever their payment reports with her social security number, it was being reported for her also to boost her credit score. So those are just some of the ways that you could basically mix your credit with different type of loans or different type of trade line accounts that are reporting positive to the bureaus. All right. The fifth one of the big five is basically new credit. Lenders like to see how you manage, credit. They want to see how many times have you applied for credit within a certain amount of time. So they call these things inquiries. All right, inquiries on your credit. How many times did you ask a lender to inquire about giving you credit? How much times did you inquire from a lender to get credit? How many times in the past month or in the last year or the last couple of years? Okay? So inquiries stay on your credit report for a little while. Maybe, I think it's like up to a year the inquiries stay on. And then after a while, they start to drop off. They don't like when you have too much inquiries. There's times that if you apply and you have a certain amount of inquiries, that could basically allow a lender to deny you because they're saying basically like what they're saying is like you're too thirsty, you're too hungry for credit. That's what they're saying. Sorry, I was at to take my water breaks. They're saying that you're too hungry, you're too thirsty for credit. And because you're too hungry, you're too thirsty for credit, they don't think that you're going to be a good candidate for credit. Now, for somebody that's in a hard situation and need credit and they ended up having to have to apply for credit and they have a few inquiries, there's nothing that you can really do. So let's talk about some places or companies that are allowed, or basically gives you a lot of inquiries. One place or one thing that you apply for, whenever you apply for, a car loan, you end up with so much inquiries on your credit. Because when you go to that dealership or wherever let's say it's a dealership, it's not really a private sale. But if you go to a dealership and they end up buying, you end up buying a car, for you to qualify for that loan, they're going to run your credit profile to a lot of different loan companies. And so those loan companies basically have to view your credit profile. You might go apply for one auto loan and you end up with literally like 50 to 100 50 inquiries, not 100, up to 50 inquiries. This could be days that they're basically running your credit profile. Or if you went to one dealership and it didn't work out, the other dealership would have to run your credit profile. They would have to see what is going on, with your credit before they qualify you. And I've heard of situations where if you went to one dealership and they ran your credit profile and they didn't like what they saw, you couldn't just go into another dealership the next day and just apply. It's like they put a limit on the time because, again, I think it probably hurts your credit profile. So those are just some of the five factors, the big five as I call it, that make up 100% of your credit profile. So again, we had 35% of your payment history. And for that payment history, we're just looking at paying your cards or paying your bills on time. That's it. It's like, for example, let's talk about another form of credit. Like if you rent, you know that every month, the first of the month, your rent is due with a grace period. When you have credit cards or you have loans, that's another thing I want to touch on. They also give you grace periods. So if something is due, let's say the 5th of the month, each company is different. They have the amount of time that they allot for grace or for time for you to get it together or for you to pay. Everybody has a situation that arises, but for sure, you want to make sure that those payments are on time. You want to make sure that they're coming in. If, I always tell people that if, in cleaning up your credit, if you are trying to get your payment history up and if you find that you're running behind on your payments, Don't just sit there and let it default. Don't just sit there and basically say, okay, you know what, I'm not going to pay it because I don't have it. You got to talk to the lender, because at the end of the day, that 35% payment history is going to make a difference in you qualifying. Okay. Another thing I want to talk about when you don't pay on time with your payment history. Now, if you look on your credit reports, you'll see, if you look on your credit reports, you will see, 30 days, you'll see 60 days, you'll see 90 days, and so forth. You see all of those different, numbers. Now, the first thing is when you're 30 days late, right? You don't want that, because sometimes if it's like 30 days late, it could definitely like drench your score. Okay. It could basically tank your score. That's what a 30-day late does. Then sometimes you have a 60-day late. It's going to go down more. After the 60-day late, if you end up with you have 90 days also, and you also have, what do you call it? You also have 120. And when it gets to be 120, that's when you could definitely, I'm sorry, I just have to take somebody off the slide that's being rude. Excuse me. Thank you so much for your patience. All right. Right. So what I was saying, that you don't want your card or your payment history to show that you made your payments 30 days late, or you made your payments 60 days late, 90 days late, or 120 days late. Now, let's talk about that on the 120 days. When you have those 120 day late, okay? That's when lenders start to charge off, okay? But then every lender is different. They go into review. Again, I always advise people, get in touch with your lender or your credit card company, see what you can work out. Most times those credit card companies have programs, or they have, arranged that you can make so you don't default on your credit card payments or your loans. It's like you don't have to go down that road where you don't make your payments, because you don't want to end up with like low payments or bad payments. All right. That's the big thing about the payment history. The payment history is literally, if you notice, it's the biggest one, because the payment history is 35%. The credit utilization is 30. The length of the credit history is 15%. The credit mix is 10%, and the new credit is another 10%. So that makes up the 100, right? So if you notice, the biggest one on this that we could take away from this, the basics of this, is that the payment history is the biggest thing. Showing a lender that you knew how to pay your bill, or you pay your bills on time, is the biggest part of your credit profile. And this is why we have to work and ensure that we're paying as much as we can in our credit. We're paying our credit down. We're paying for our credit cards. We're not just leaving our loans and our credit cards to default. Right. And they report those things. All right. Many a times when you default on your credit cards, 7 years that it stays on your credit for? And a lot of things go to the statute of limitations depending on your state. Again, credit is, I don't want to say it's a case by case basis, but like, God forbid you default on your credit or your credit score goes down. Every lender, every credit card company, every loan company, they take different ways and different measures to get their money back. Some might decide that, okay, hi, hi, cool kid, thank you for joining. Some might decide that, listen, they want to take legal action, or they just might, let it charge off, or they sell the debt. So again, you don't want those things to be in your credit report where you're not making your payments on time. For those people that are able to make their payments on time, good for you. It's only building your credit history much higher. All right. It's only making your payment history much higher. As far as utilization, as I said, although they say 30%, when I use my cards, I don't even like to go over 10%. I don't. And if I ended up where I have to go over 10%, I try to pay it off as soon as possible. And the reason why, I'm not paying it off as soon as possible because, I obviously had the extra money. I just pay it off because I don't want it to stretch out. Because when you let those payments linger on for a long time, you end up with a really high interest rate. Okay? You end up with a really high interest rate. Interest is basically extending on your credit profile. It's like the bank is making a lot of interest when you could have paid it off. Credit is wonderful. Credit is beautiful. But credit is not supposed to end up costing you more than what you borrowed. You get what I'm saying? If you have a credit card where it's $1,000 you borrowed and you wait, like, let's say 5 years or even 10 years to pay it off, that $1,000 that you initially got from the bank, that ended up costing you maybe 5,000 in a few years, depending on the interest rate that you get. Okay? So that's why it's so important. It's so imperative that everyone tries their best to pay, to pay it on time. Everybody should try to utilize the least that they can with the credit cards. Again, credit is basically a privilege. It's for emergencies. I would tell anyone, in terms of the length of the credit history, if you are having a hard time establishing credit, get you a secured credit card. Get a secured credit card. A secured credit card, unless there's something really egregious written about you on your, your credit profile, it should not be difficult for you to get you a secured credit card. And again, I'm going to touch on exactly what a secured credit card is. A secured credit card is a card that you fund. Or if you don't fund all of it, sometimes a lender will even fund some of the secured credit card for you. All right? So you're securing it. So when you're securing it, you're the one that's putting the money up front. So when you apply for the credit card, and let's say you haven't built credit or you're trying to rebuild your credit, if you haven't been able to get credit from the lender itself, you're going to basically bring the money. So with the secure credit card, they might say to you, listen, okay, if you put down, and I'm just throwing numbers out there, if you put down like $500, right? Or some companies even allow you to put down $200, depending where you start. Now, for like a student or somebody who's rebuilding their credit profile, you put down anywhere from $200 to $500. Basically, you use it, you stay under the 30% utilization, like we said, and once you use this utilization, you pay it back every month. Here is the beautiful thing with the secured credit card. Now, with the secured credit card, you end up, graduating or getting that money back after a year. Again, this is like your credit profile is basically, your credit report is basically a report card that the lenders look at to see how you did. So when you end up getting that secured credit card, they're going to watch you for like a year. They're going to watch and see exactly what you did, or they're going to watch and see exactly how you spent that money for that year. And even though you're the one that funded it, they're still going to try to see exactly how you spent it. So what I always tell people with secured credit cards, I don't care if you get a cup of coffee, use your card, right? Cup of coffee. Let's say you're spending your $5 on $3 to $5 on a cup of coffee, depending if you get small, medium, or large. Once you use it, you spend it, you pay it back right away. Build your payment history with that secured credit card. All right? Try to, even though you're the one that funded that secured credit card and it's your money, try to keep the utilization low. Okay? Spend the 30% that they advise you to spend. If you can't stay up below 30%, okay, whatever you spent, try to pay it off right away each month and build the history. Again, I had a gentleman that was saying that because he would spend his credit card, once he would spend the credit card and pay it back right away, he ended up getting his score literally in 3 months. His score just shot up. It just kept going up and up and up. Because remember, it's every 30 days that it's reported to the credit bureaus, right? So every 30 days, provided that your payment is good, your score is going up. The same way your score can go down if it's not being reported properly is the same exact way your score can also go up. It's literally the same thing. It's like you understand what I'm saying? It's like you have to do the things to allow them to elevate your score. So how is your score elevated? When you make your payments on time. Another great way to get your credit score up is by basically, paying more than they require you to pay. So if the minimum, I'm just going to number, if the minimum is $28, why not pay $30? Let's say you have $1,000 credit card and you spent the $300 and they came back and said, you know what? The minimum payment is like, I don't know, maybe $28, $25. I guess they have their firm to come up with it. Listen, if I can afford to pay more than the $20 or $25, I'm paying more. I'm definitely paying more, because when I pay more, it allows me to basically build my payment history, and it's keeping my utilization lower. All right? I'm not having it out there where it's taken forever for me to basically, pay off that credit card. The longer you keep the credit card out there, is the longer the longer you have to pay back, and the lender's making more money. For the lender, that's great. They're in the business of making money. You're in the business of borrowing money. They're in the business of making money. But when you borrow money, you need to borrow the money wisely. You need to pay the money back. You need to have it lingering on and let interest keep accruing day in and day out. It doesn't really make any sense. All right. So that is exactly how we utilize our credit. We keep it at 30% or lower if we can, and pay back right away. I also want to touch that for the credit history. Another great way to build, your credit history is basically being an authorized user on somebody's credit card. Now, let me explain to you what I mean by that. And I've talked about authorized user credit cards because they're so important. Because the hardest thing is that a lot of people really don't know how to establish credit. A lot of people don't understand that credit is a tool that we use to get financial freedom. Credit is a tool that we use to buy things. Like a lot of things in life are tools, and if you don't know how to use those tools, it's going to be very difficult. You're going to end up getting bad rates. You're going to end up paying more for things than you should have because you simply don't understand how to utilize something. In this age of technology that we live, everybody knows how to use their phone. Everybody knows how to use their electronics, but do a lot of people really know how to use their credit, how to use it as an asset? Your credit it's an asset to you. It is something that you could use to build wealth over time if it's good. You should not only be worrying about your credit only when you need to buy something. Hence, you need to keep your payment history or your credit history good. So when you're finally ready to make that big purchase, you're not sweating and putting and feeling like your back is against the wall because you don't have good credit. All right. So how would the authorized user help you now with the length of your credit history? First of all, again, let's define what an authorized user is. An authorized user is somebody that's allowed on a person's credit card. Okay? So let's say they have, okay, let's say, I'll give it up. John has a credit card that he's had for years. John pays his bills on time, he pays them well. His credit score is through the roof. His debt to income ratio is perfect. John is a good candidate to be an authorized user on their credit card. All right? Now, let's say, for example, if some people might say, well, I don't have anybody to ask to be an authorized user on their credit card. And again, an authorized user on a credit card is just someone that allows you to be on their credit card where they literally authorize you to use the card. And when you're authorized to use the card, they basically authorize you to get the payment history, the good payment history that they have. Question is, how do you get an authorized user credit card? Now, for me personally, if I'm an authorized user on somebody's credit card, I don't need to have the credit card. All I really want for them is to report their good payment history. Their payment history is what's going to help me to elevate my credit score and show that I'm paying on time. So you get an authorized user credit card from somebody that you're close to, or somebody that you could, tell what's going on, that you're trying to establish credit. So, for example, I had somebody ask me what they said. Well, I don't know anybody. I don't really want anybody in my business. Okay. I don't know. There's got to be somebody that you can trust, that you could basically ask to be an authorized user on their credit card. The only thing that the person's going to ask you for, again, is just your social, because remember, they're going to call the credit card company and they're going to give them the social. An authorized user, it's kind of like a co-signer for a credit card. But the only difference is that you who's going to be the authorized user on a credit card, you're not like putting anything down. You're just taking a chance in hoping that whoever you ask to be the authorized user on a credit card, that their payment history is reporting you as being good. That's all. And it's something that you can easily remove. Now, for example, let's say again, you're in the market where you're trying to buy a home, and you had a certain credit score. And remember, you getting a mortgage is dependent on what your credit score is, the type of mortgage that you can do. The live that I did yesterday, we talked about the different types of loan that are based on your credit. And just to retouch, I said there were three. I said there was the conventional, where it's based on if you're in the higher 600s with the credit, up to even 800. You have so much more buying power. Conventional loans, they're for people that have a really strong credit history, like phenomenal credit, and for people that have a really great, income, good financial backing, so they can afford to put anything down from, from the 5 to, up to 20%, whatever they want to put down. Then I touched on the the FHA loans, where these are loans that are government backed, and if you had a lower credit score, you could still get a loan, but just know that when you have a lower credit score and you qualify for the loan, you're going to end up paying something called PMI, private mortgage insurance. Those are the things that you're going to end up doing, again, because your credit is lower. So it would behoove you to, as I was saying before, get on somebody's credit card, and that allows you to be an authorized user. The only thing that you're worried about or concerned about is that the person that you ask, and hopefully if it's like a family member that you trust or some of your significant other, I would trust that they would, keep paying their bills on time. Again, if, for example, like let's say I'm a student and I'm trying to establish credit, when you try to get that first credit card as a student or as just an give it to you. So, for example, if I'm a student and I'm trying to, build my credit profile, like I'm in college, I'm trying to build my credit profile. If one of my parents have good credit, I'm getting on their credit card. I'm asking them to be an authorized user. Remember, as I said, you don't need the credit card. You don't have to have the credit card in your hands. As a matter of fact, I don't even want one ordered for me. And even if they order one, of the bank sends one, right? Whoever it is that you got on their card as an authorized user, they're the one that's going to keep the card anyway. You don't need it. But again, like let's say you're a student and it happens to be like one of your parents and you get on their credit card, or it's a relative, and they said, okay, here, I'm gonna give you a credit card for you to use it each month. There's nothing wrong with that. It's an asset to you. You're the one that's building up your credit profile. So, there's pros and cons to everything. The pro, not the pro, the plus is that your credit profile is being built up. The con is like, I don't know, maybe you want the card and you can't get the card, you can't spend the card. But again, as long as my numbers and my score is going up, like the big five that I mentioned, as long as it's reporting payment history, timely payment history. It's reporting good utilization, less than 30%, minimum 10%. Okay. If it's showing those things and my score is like literally climbing up, going up the ladder every month, if I wanted to buy something, maybe I wait 6 months as an authorized user. When I go back 6 months and listen, if I had my credit score, God forbid, let's say my credit was like in the low 500s, and I said, I'm going to give myself 6 months to get my score up to at least in the mid 600s, I could qualify and get a better rate. I'm going to do it. I just hope that I could find someone to make me an authorized user. And again, a lot of these things, they're not taught in school. A lot of people don't know that they could be authorized users. You don't have to be an adult to be, an authorized user on somebody's credit card. It could even be a kid. A lot of people don't know that you could put your kid on your credit card as an authorized user since they were small kids. Heck, if you got a 10-year-old, you could put your 10-year-old on your credit profile if you have credit to be an authorized user. All you're really doing is just setting up your 10-year-old's or your younger child's profile at a certain time. You don't have to wait until you're like 20, 30, or 40 to build credit. Like, it doesn't work like that. Credit is something that needs to be built over time. That's why they call it payment history. They call it that because they watch your history. They watch you for a certain time to see how you've been spending your money, how you've been building your money up. That's exactly what they do. They want to see that you're actually spending your money at a certain amount of time, and you're using your money wisely. You're not making bogus purchases. You're not buying things that are too high. You get what I'm saying? So this is where we jump into something called our debt to income ratio. When you qualify for any cards, and again, the credit cards is like the beginning. The credit card's a backbone. When you qualify, if you notice on every credit application, they're going to ask you, I'm sorry, a little thirsty. They're going to ask you what your income is. Now, I believe in my mind that they could easily check these things. They know. But again, they want to see what you're going to put to see how they can qualify. They're going to ask you what your income is. They ask you what your income is because they want to know what your debts are, your debt to income ratio, right? So let's say, for example, like I'm just throwing a number out there. Let's say, you're making, maybe a 10,000 a year salary. I'm just putting numbers out there. Okay. They're not going to give you a credit card if you're just making a 10,000 salary. They're not going to give you a credit card for $5,000. That's half of your salary. What if you end up maxing out that card? the lender is looking at saying, how are you going to pay that back? How are you going to do it? So what they're going to do is they're going to give you based on how much money you report, how much you tell them that you're earning, right? Once they know how much you're earning, they base the credit limit off of that, right? Sometimes you might apply for credit and you might just be able to get $500. Another person might get 1,000. Another person might get 2,000. Another person might get up to 5,000, even 20,000. It all depends on what you put down. Okay, that's how lenders gauge how much money that they're going to lend you. All right, that's how lenders gauge it. Right. So that's how you do it. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. Right. Does anybody have any questions? All right. Let's just quickly touch back on the new credit. A lot of people find it hard to apply for credit. So let's talk about some ways to get new credit other than the authorized user. Let's look at, building trade lines. That's a new way to get new credit. A lot of people start off by getting store cards, right? A lot of these cards nowadays are digital. I remember when I was trying to build credit, I always got that famous Macy's card. It was wonderful, right? And yeah, okay, okay, thank you. Those cards are excellent for building credit, the store cards, because again, everybody likes to shop, and once you have the store cards that you build, they could basically see again how you're spending it, how you're evolving it. So that's a new way to get new credit. And funny enough, new credit is only 10%. New credit only makes up 10% of your profile. So lenders aren't really big on you getting a lot of credit because, as I said, with the inquiries, the new credit that you're trying to get, they don't really like when you have too much new credit on your profile. They don't like too much inquiries at all. I've seen it where if you applied, let's say you applied maybe 3 times in a month, and then you go like literally the next month to apply, they'll deny you because I think the lender's looking at it. Well, how much credit you want? It's good to have credit and it's good to have opportunities and options, but at the end of the day, can you pay all those credit back? Can you pay all those cards back? Can you afford those loans back? You understand? So this is the reason why they keep asking, like, how much you make, and what credit card you have, and how much inquiries. But like anything else, and this is something for like a different life. Your credit is something that can be fixed. It can be fixed. It can be cleaned up. It can be taken care of. You can definitely do it. And that's a different video of how to basically clean up your credit. Now, if you check out my channel, I have videos on there that talks about, the things that bureaus look for when you write to them to try to clean up your credit. I talked about how to clean up your credit with the snail mail way as opposed to the digital way. So if you get a chance, check out the channel. I have these videos. This credit, this is basically a series that I'm doing because what TeamU talks about, what this channel, what I really focus on is ways to level up your money. And I realize, just even based on the comments that I get, that a lot of people literally don't know about credit. And I'm not talking about like knowing of the existence of credit cards. I'm not talking about knowing of the existence of just borrowing money. I'm talking about a lot of people don't understand and don't know how to use or how to utilize the tool of credit. They don't know how to use it. They don't know how to go out and get credit. They don't know when they default. They don't know the rules of credit. They don't know the game of credit. And the funny thing is, you don't even need to make a lot of money to have good credit. You don't. You have people that have credit scores that are 700, 800, okay? Anywhere from 650 up, that don't make a lot of money, but they're able to buy things because, see, the trick is that good credit allows you to buy almost anything you want. Because you could still make a decent salary or a lower salary and have better credit than somebody who makes more than you, because you make less and you manage your money better than the person that makes more, because the person that makes more doesn't know how to manage their money. That's what credit is. Credit is managing your money. That's what credit is. Okay? And if you know how to manage your money, it's very easy for you to qualify. It's easy for lenders to lend you money. See, what you don't understand is that banks are in the habit, or banks are in the business of lending money. They want to lend money. It's just as hard for the banks to find people. Just as it's hard for some people to establish credit and to try to find credit, it is just as hard for the banks to try to give credit. Because again, a lot of people don't have a payment history. A lot of people don't know how to utilize their credit. They don't know how to utilize the amount. A lot of people don't realize that you have to have credit ongoing. You got to show the lender that you know how to manage your money. Okay? I have credit cards on my account that are like over literally 17 years old. I'm not even kidding you. And I'm in my 40s. 17 years old. I've had the same credit card. Another trick that a lot of people do with credit cards, like let's say you have a credit card for a long time and you don't want to, keep spending, because I know it's tempting. You might want to use it even if after you pay it off, maybe use, your return, whatever, to pay your credit card off. You don't want to go back in that trap again. But some people literally just put them away. Or some people end up, I had one girl tell me that sometimes she just, she has a card for a long time. You never close it. She doesn't close it. She literally just, like she said, she cuts them up. I don't cut my cards up. I just literally put my cards away and I leave it there, because there's times when I do need to use a card that I even forgot about. Okay? A lot of people end up, that's another thing that I want to advise that you never do. If you have a credit card that you've had for years and, you've paid it off and you don't want to be tempted to use it again, don't ever get rid of that card. Okay? You don't get rid of it, because the longer you keep it, it's the more it's reporting, making up your payment history. So again, I always use 1,000 because that's like, I guess that's my favorite amount. Let's say you have a credit card that you owed $1,000 on, right? And you paid off the 1,000. Let's say the limit was 1,000. You paid off the 1,000 limit, and you have that card. This is fabulous, because now that card that you have paid off, that card is now being reported to the bureaus. So it's showing. So what you want to do is, when you have that car that you paid off for that 1,000, every once in a while, maybe once a month or once every 2 months, you want to get a cup of coffee, or buy your gas, or whatever it is. Buy yourself an ice cream, whatever it is, but just use the card. Because another thing with credit cards is that if you, let's say you pay off a card, or even if it's a new card that you never use, and even though it's open and you could use it, and if the lender sees that you're not using the card, they're going to close it. So another trick is that when you have or you establish credit, you still you still have to use the credit card. You still have to use it. You don't just leave it open like that. You get what I'm saying? You still have to use it, because you have to show an activity. It's like the banks don't want the card being dormant where it's not being used. You're just having it there. So again, it shows how you're utilizing it. Credit utilization is number one. All right? That's the way you manage your card. Okay? And then once you do it, by the time you look, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a lot of cards, as much as you want. Then after showing that you have a good, payment history, or you have, accounts for a long time, you're going to start getting offers. You're going to start having banks that are sending you multiple cards. And I always tell people, be careful with that. Yes, I believe in having more than one credit card. Yes, I think it's important to have more than one option. Options in life is good, but you don't want it to be where you're utilizing every single card, or you're having like 20, 30 cards, because again, lenders don't like too much inquiries, and lenders don't like too much accounts on one profile. It looks like you're desperate for credit, like you want too much, and sometimes too much credit is not good. You want to have a decent amount where if you jam or bind, you could always borrow. I also want to touch on something else. I want to talk about when you're applying for credit, right? And this is the last one, new credit, okay? And I want to talk about like when they basically pull it. Every time when they pull your credit, right? It's called a soft pull and a hard pull. So the soft pull, they say the soft pull doesn't affect you. It doesn't show, because remember, every time when they pull your credit, your score goes down. Even if you're applying, if it's even like 10 points, your score goes down. So again, this is why you don't want to have too much people running your credit. You don't want to have too much inquiries on your credit, because it just keeps dwindling down or tanking your score. Right. So what you basically need to do is this: whenever you apply for new credit, right? Whenever you apply for new credit, the inquiries, you got to basically space at the time that you apply for credit. You don't want to keep applying for credit back to back. It's too many inquiries on there. And you want to make sure that whoever's pulling your credit, that they're doing a soft pull on your credit. You want it to be a soft pull. Now, most lenders, what they will do, and I think this is actually good, well, this is actually pretty good, because again, every time they pull your credit, it can go down. Some of them do a soft pull, and if they end up doing a soft pull, it tells them exactly what your score is, right? Tells them what your score is. And in addition to them knowing what your score is, if they believe that you're pre-qualified, then they do the hard pull. They do the hard pull. And with the hard pull now, that's the one that's going to actually, and either way, your score is going to go down a little bit. But it's not to the point, it's not going to go down to the point, you're not going to lose 100 points because of of an inquiry or a qualification for something. You only really lose other points, like, when it comes to like your payment history, like if you haven't paid on time, like if your payments are late. And it's crazy. It's amazing because you can have such a really high score. You can have like a good, I'm just throwing a number out here. Like, let's say you have like a 700 credit score, and the one late payment that you have could literally send your credit score like down to like 600. Or I'm just giving a round number. I don't know exactly what numbers. Everybody's score, everybody's financial situation is different. But one late payment could basically like send your payment down so low. And you don't want that. If you've been working like this literally this whole year, or how many years trying to build a credit for that big purchase, because the question is, why do people even build up their credit? Why do people try to have good credit? Ultimately, because you want financial freedom, you want to buy something. Um, a lot of people basically look at their credit when they want to buy their cars or they want to buy their homes. Because I think those are the two major purchases that people really utilize credit for: cars and homes. More so, what I touched on yesterday was, that mortgage. That mortgage is like the biggest thing with credit. It's the biggest thing with credit. It's like there's no way you're gonna qualify for a mortgage if you don't have decent credit or somewhat up to par with your credit. They're not gonna give you the money. And with everything, okay, if you're buying the car, and your credit isn't good, yes, you don't have as much strenuous documents or paperwork, but here's the thing: you end up getting higher interest rates. You don't want that. Yes, you're gonna get the instant satisfaction of having the car, but sorry. You're gonna have the instant satisfaction of getting the car, and you feel really good and you drive off, but at the end of the day, the interest rate is so terrible. You're gonna have a hard time paying for that car. It's like that instant gratification is gonna end up, being long-term dissatisfaction. You're gonna probably have buyer's remorse, for that car. So you want to make sure that you go into that dealership the right way. As I said, the mortgage is a very big asset. The house is a big asset. The purchase is very big. So if you end up paying, or getting a really bad interest rate, I had a gentleman touch on the adjustable mortgage yesterday, and it's some people where they qualify where you might get it low right now, and later, if it's adjustable, it might go up a higher rate, and it changes your mortgage payment and all those things. Again, you want something that's fixed, right? Just like with them credit cards. That's why you want to make sure you make the payments right away, because you don't want to extend them, because the interest on it over time is just too much. It's like $1,000 credit should not cost you, $3,000-$4,000 in the end by the time you pay that card off. Credit is something that is good. I think credit is wonderful, in my own personal opinion. I think everybody needs credit, but with credit, if you don't know how to manage and how to utilize your credit, it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be difficult for you to buy anything. It's going to be difficult for you to, establish, your profile. So those are, or those were the five things, and I named them the big five. So again, just to touch, let me just tell you exactly what they are. Somebody that's just joining us new. Um, you know, as I said, it's your payment history. That's 35%. It's your credit utilization. That's 30%. It's the length, the time that you've had credit. That's 15%. It's also the mix, which is 10%, showing how many, how many different lines or how many types of credit you have on there. And it's also the new credit, which is 10%. You notice that they're not really big on the new credit. The hardest part is establishing the credit. And once you know how to establish the credit, okay, so I think it's Alkaline said, would it be smarter to get credit through an LLC if you have bad credit from over 8 years ago and start to fix it? Okay, so Alkaline, I think you're talking about like business credit. Business credit is like a whole different thing. I mean, I know about business credit too, but business credit is like a whole different thing because with business credit, it really goes through your LLC and so forth. It's not really counted towards it. Like I know, for example, like let's say you open a business and you're able to get a business credit card, right? They don't really ask you for a personal guarantee depending on how much money you're taking out. And business credit is something that is basically separated from personal credit. But the thing with business credit is that you know that business credit, like you qualify for business credit based on your personal credit. Of course, there's places that say, yeah, they could give you whatever, but trust me, for you to start establishing business credit, you have to have some type of credibility with your regular personal credit to get business credit. And then once you get business credit, I remember a couple years ago, Sam's Club, I'm not even sure if they do it anymore. Sam's Club offered a business credit card, and people are saying, oh, that you could qualify for it, with your personal credit. Hogwash, absolute nonsense. Try to get it, and literally the person that was taking the application, they was like, yes, it is a business line of credit that's reported to like Dun and Bradstreet, whatever this, that, and the third. But it all depends on your personal credit, right? How you're managing your money eventually, because they have to have some type of criteria. So your question, of course, of course. Right, of course. If it makes it your personal credit, of course, because you separate your business, right? And we separate our business because of tax purposes. Now, your question is it better to fix the credit? Um, for me, I would fix my personal credit because, again, as I said, it's called something PG, personal guarantee. Even when you apply for business credit, you still, they still look at some things of your personal asset, your personal credit, right? And for personal credit, I mean, it's something that you could easily fix yourself. You could easily fix yourself. Many years ago, when people used to try to get credit, it was so hard. It was so hard for people to get credit. Okay, it was hard. But now, like I said before, with this technology age, like these banks are dying to give people money. I think, what is it? Chase had a program. I mean, I didn't apply for it, but Chase had a program where if your FICO was 700, you could literally get like hundreds of thousands of dollars from Chase. Now, look into that. How much people you know, not that you know people's personal profile, but how many people you know that's trying to start a business that have over a 700 credit score? So yes, they offer it to you, but the question is, can you qualify for it? So this is why I would say, yes, business credit is wonderful. I love business credit and so forth. I've had business credit cards. The good thing with business credit cards is that the difference with business credit card is that you don't have to stand at 30% utilization, right? You might get a business credit card. Like, let's say you have the Amex business credit card. You could spend, if it's 10,000, you could spend the whole 10,000, but just know that next month you have to be paying the whole thing back, just like with their personal credit card. So it's like some of them might give you, some more leeway. The business credit card might give you more leeway, but it's like the more you can spend, it's easier for you to get into more, like, I don't know, financial trouble. I don't know, but there's nothing wrong with having a business credit card. So I would definitely, yes, I would get business credit if I could through my LLC. That's right. And I remember a couple years ago, people to get business credit, they was using stuff like Granger. They were using those accounts where, like, if you order like stationery and it was reporting, and then people was having Dun and Bradstreet. I mean, it was so much harder. Honestly, I mean, I haven't even touched on getting business credit in a few years, to be quite honest. I mean, I know about it. I know how to get it. I know how to qualify for it. I know that even having just like a regular PayPal account, if you take PayPal, you can easily get like business funding through PayPal. But again, having business funding or having business credit is wonderful as long as you know that you still have your personal credits that's decent. And as I said before, it's not really hard to clean up your personal credit. It really isn't. And I have had times where my credit wasn't up to par, and I do it myself. I do it myself. And I don't know, maybe I'll start running a workshop, where I start teaching people how to clean up their credit. Hi, Banner. Good to see you. How are you? Good to see you. Today we're talking about the big five, and all the things that we need to clean up our credit. Right. And I talked about payment history. I talked about utilization. I talked about the length of the credit history, the mix of credit, and finally new credit. So just had a gentleman, and you're asking, what's good with you, better business or regular credit? And I said, business credit is great, but I will always work on my personal credit. Sometimes, if you have a business, stuff happens, life happens, but that freedom that you have with your personal credit is timeless. It's like you're never going to get rid of your personal credit. You always have it. You need it for life. Businesses come and go. People open businesses for years and close businesses. But your credit profile, even when you're retired, even when you stop working, you still utilizing your credit. If you have a business and you close a business, you don't use that business credit anymore. Right, because whoever is funding the credit, you have to show them that, you know, I'm saying you said all SIM this back to how to be used. I'm not really sure what you're saying. Like, what do you mean, like a SIM card? I'm not sure. Right, just re-put your question there, just to make sure. Credits. Okay, you're saying that all credit is the same. It's just how you use it. You're right, right. Well, what's credit, right? Credit is borrowed money, right? And yep, credit cards. Yep, that's credit. Whether it's auto credit, mortgage credit, credit card credit, doesn't matter. It's borrowed money. And when people borrow you or lend you money, they just want to make sure that they're gonna get their money back. That's all. So again, this has to do with your utilization and your payment history. Are you paying people their money back? That's all they want to know is how you're paying it back. If you're not paying the money back, I mean, that's it. That's a wrap. You're not gonna be able to qualify if you default. So, like I said, I think credit is good. Credit is a great tool, but just know how to use it wisely. For those of you that came on the live tonight, I really thank you for your time. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. Again, I'll be picking this back up tomorrow. When I have another workshop on credit. The name of this live was Credit 101. And these were the basics. These are the 5 components of your credit report. The 5 percentages of what makes up your credit report. So with that said, have a wonderful, wonderful evening and so forth. Thank you so much, Brandon. Thank you for liking. Thank you for supporting the live. With that said, I'm sure I'll be on tomorrow. Please join me again where we talk about credit. All right? So we've talked about credit in real estate. We've talked about and tonight was the basics of what makes up your credit profile, because I don't think a lot of people understand what makes up their credit profile. They don't understand. They don't know. And because they don't understand and because they don't know what makes up their credit profile, it makes it very difficult for them to even get credit. And we want to change that. I always tell people on my channel, I say, we want to level up our money. And one of the first ways to level up our money is to clean up or level up our credit. Once your credit is good, you can buy whatever you want. You might as well call yourself a millionaire once you have good credit, because you basically open a gateway to getting the things that you need. Okay? And with that said, thank you so much for joining me, team. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. All right. Thank you so much. Mander, thank you for joining. I appreciate it. All right. Alkaline, thank you so much for joining on the live. Appreciate your time. Cool Kid, thank you. Omid, thank you for joining. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Okay. Bye. Thank you. Yes, you're welcome too. My name is Mel. Welcome to Team News Live. The name of today's live is Your Credit Score Matters, Getting a Mortgage. Again, this is called Your Credit Score Matters Getting a Mortgage. So I'll give a few minutes. I'll hopefully wait for some people to join me. But first thing that I want to do is I want to give a special shout out to a gentleman that was on another live that I had about authorized users and getting credit and how to establish it. His name is Bander CC. Again, that's Bander CC. I don't know if it's a gentleman or a lady, but whoever was the person's name is Bander CC. I'd like to give a special shout out. Hopefully he'll join me on this live. So this live today, we're gonna talk about, why credit matters, and I'm also gonna talk about, three of the loans that people usually get, three of the type of mortgages that people get when they're trying to, get a mortgage. Okay. So I'm gonna dive in on the FHA. I'm going to talk about the conventional, and I'm also going to talk about the veterans, three. And of course, if anybody, wants to jump in and, talk about or ask about other mortgages, we can do it. And if not, I'll just, run down and talk about basically what the mortgages do. So first thing that I want to talk about is that I know I talked about having a secured credit card. I also talked about getting, a credit card by being an authorized user on a card. And why I even emphasize all those things, because I thought it would be good if you started to establish your credit or find a way to establish credit, because we all know that getting credit is just really not easy. Okay? So that is exactly what I wanted to talk about. But why I'm even talking about today's live about a mortgage is because the person that was on that live, they were talking about basically like, what to put down and how putting down, how what you put down is all dependent on the rate that you get. Now, the rate that you get all has to do with your credit score when you get those mortgages. So I have a little pen and paper here that I prepared. I have everything. Hi, good NYKFC. How you doing? Good to see you. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me. How are you today? So what I was saying is I have a little sheet that I want to go over and talk about the mortgages, or the different ways, the different types of mortgages you can get based on your credit score. Right. Right. Okay. Right. Okay. All right. So we all know that when you have bad credit and you're trying to buy a product, doesn't matter what it is, but for the sake of today's live, we're focusing on, getting a mortgage to buy a home. We all know that when you have, less than par credit or bad credit, that it's very hard for you to qualify to get good rates. Okay. Now, when you have bad credit, it makes it difficult for you to qualify. So as a result, you can qualify, but it's going to be a lot more strenuous than if you had a good credit score. So as I said, I wanted to talk about three three main mortgages that people usually qualify for. Now, the first one that I have is basically, the conventional loan. Now, before we talk about exactly what the conventional loan is and how it works with your credit, I just want to go over what lenders tend to look for with credit scores. So if you have anywhere from, let's say, 760 to 780, that's considered to be like excellent credit. Even if you have up to 800, you have excellent credit. They say if you have anything from 660 to 699 or 700, you have fair, aka good credit. You're still decent. And if you have anything from 620 up to like 659, they say it's a little poor. But as long as you're in the 600 range, the high sixes, like anywhere from 620 up, you seem to be doing good. All right. Now, if you have below the 620, right, they say that's poor credit, or that's less than, great credit. So now that we know what the average scores are for credit, let's talk about, the different loans that go based on your credit. All right. So the first one that I want to talk about is the conventional mortgage, or the conventional loan. Okay. So with the conventional loan, you can put anywhere from I think from 3 to 20% down. Now, let's just exactly talk about what a conventional buyer is. So a conventional buyer, oh yeah, who's this? Says so I'm good with 825. Oh, you are excellent. You are doing fabulous. I think it says, yeah, Kishore. Oh, Kishore, you're doing fabulous. I mean, you already got the memo. You know exactly what it was to have such a great credit score. Congratulations. You know, I'm not even there yet myself. I mean, I'm decent, but you are just excellent. Good for you. I guess if I don't know, Kishore, maybe you're a homeowner and you bought your house conventional. I don't know. Maybe with that great credit score, you could have been any type of buyer. But in any event, let's talk about the conventional mortgage. Okay, so in order for you to qualify for a conventional mortgage, you got to have a 620 and above credit score. 620 is a little bit pushing it, but Addison, hi, thank you for joining us. 620 is pushing it, but we talking about like you want to try to have something like at least 650 up to like 700, 800 to get a conventional mortgage. So with a conventional mortgage, when you get that type of mortgage, you don't pay stuff like PMI. You don't pay like it's called a private mortgage insurance. You don't pay all those other things as opposed to other borrowers that have less than subpar credit. So, oh, excellent. Right. Again, Kishore, credit cards weekly. Hi, Munkai. Thank you for joining. So let's just stick to the conventional loan. So with the conventional loans, you know that you're above 620, you're 700, 800, whatever it is, and you applied for that loan. Now, you can put anywhere from at least 3 to 20% down. The more you could put down is the more stronger it is. It's like the better backing for the loan. Right, because again, what I want to tell you is that conventional mortgages are for people that have like strong credit scores, and they also have like strong finances, like the people that make really good money. Okay, right, exactly. Okay, Kishore just said again that he keeps his balances below 10% of the credit line, so you can pump up your score over 750 in less than 3 months. And I'm so glad you brought that point out because a lot of people, when they're struggling with credit, they think that, oh, you know, I'm just gonna, pay whatever once in a while. No, you got to show consistency. As I've always said, and in my previous lives and videos, your credit profile is like a report card, okay? And he sure hit it on the nail when he was like, you pay, he keeps it below 10%. I've said to people that if you have a credit card and let's say you have $1,000 limit on it, I always tell people don't spend, or if it's me, I wouldn't spend more than 30% or $300 of the $1,000 because I want to keep it at a certain level. Now, there's circumstances, and if you need to spend more, and whatever, just make sure that when it's time to pay it back, that you pay more than what the minimum is. Okay, just make sure you pay more than what the minimum is because remember, the minimum, all you're paying is the APR. Your balance, your principal is not going down. You're just basically paying the bank the interest. And again, that's the way the bank makes their money. So obviously, apparently, they don't see a problem with that. But again, back to the conventional loans, if you can put anywhere from 5%, even 10%, or even up to that 20% down on your mortgage, you are a very strong candidate. It makes it easier for you to qualify to get that mortgage. Right. And then when I get to my second loan, which is the FHA loan, right, though that's good. Pay days before it's due. That's good. Before I get to the FHA loan, I want to show you the difference of how it's harder to qualify for a mortgage when you get, when you have less than, subprime credit. Like it's so difficult. You have to just go through so much more hoops as opposed to when your credit score is higher and you can just easily finance it. All right. So that is the conventional mortgage for people that have higher credit score and strong, financial backing. And many times when I say strong financial backing, a lot of people that have, I guess, great careers that pay really high money, or people that have businesses, conventional loans work for them. It's a lot easier for them to finance their loan as opposed to the average person gets the FHA loan. So now that I've talked a little bit about the conventional loan, let me just segue into the FHA loan. So the FHA loan the FHA loan is for people that have lower credit. Now, not because your credit, no, Makai, I don't really know, hon. I'm sorry. Um, do you know that people that get FHA loans is for people that have lower credit ratings or lower credit score? So, from what I know, for you to qualify for an FHA loan, your credit score has to be 580 and higher. Notice I said 580. At least with the conventional loan, you They wanted you to be at 620 and above. I say 650, but they just say 620 as a number to give you somewhere to start, but they're looking for you to be in the 600s for conventional. With the FHA loans, you need to at least be 580 and above, okay? But here is the thing, when you're 580 and above, it doesn't automatically mean because you're 580 and above, they're just gonna let you, I'm not gonna say get away, they're just gonna let you get the mortgage. They're gonna make it easy. This is where, remember when I mentioned something called the PMI, the private mortgage insurance? Because the first thing is when you apply for an FHA loan, you have to understand that this is a loan that is backed by the government, okay? The conventional mortgage or the conventional loan is not. To get that commitment, it is not backed by the government, but the FHA loans are backed by the government. And what does that mean? That means whenever any type of loan you get, whether it be the business loan, a mortgage, or anything that has to do with like, a huge amount like spending, and the government backs it, just means that if you default, the lender has a way to basically get their money when the government supports it, because we all know the government is something that is sure, right? It's not like a regular business. The government, has money, like they have money to fund things. That's why, government's for the people, right? So the FHA loan is funded by the government, okay? They back it. And also, this is why, when you're paying that PMI for the FHA loan, the private mortgage insurance, yes, and again, this is what, having bad credit or less credit does. You tend to pay these little fees more than the average person. If you had gotten the conventional loan where you didn't need to pay those insurances, you know, you would have basically saved that money. I don't want to say it's like an added debt when you get like, FHA loans or private mortgage insurance on those loans. But again, remember, according to the mortgage company, they're taking a risk on you, or they're taking a risk with you by giving you that FHA, that government backed loan. Hi, Kayla. Hi, Kayla. Thank you for joining. Thank you so much. Welcome to the live. Please like, comment, share your thoughts. Get it through the algorithm. We're talking about, having good credit and how to qualify for a mortgage when you have good credit. Right. So what I'm basically saying is this: it's like if you, if you are able to get that FHA loan, providing that your credit is at that rate. Right, exactly. You're 100 right. PMI is basically a tax on having bad credit. Exactly. And I'm glad you brought that up. The other day when I was having a live, I said in my live, I said, when you go to buy something, specifically a car, this is an excellent point that you had. When you go to buy a car, and let's say, 10 customers went into the dealership before you, and they all have good credit, they got the best rates. When you go into that dealership to buy the car, and because your credit isn't good, you are going to get the worst rate. Okay, so instead of you getting 5% on that loan, or even 3% if the dealership has it, you're gonna get like 13, 14, up to 20%. In other words, you basically pay for all those people that had good credit. That's how they make their money. Well, it's the same thing with the mortgage insurance. It's like if they're going to take a chance and lend you money because your credit report card is terrible, you're going to have to pay those loans. Now, I will say one thing. If you end up getting an FHA loan, and we're not here to judge anybody. We're not here to judge anybody at all, because again, when I got my home, I had an FHA loan. But here is the thing about getting an FHA loan. What I would do, or what I would tell everybody, is like after having the loan, and you basically clean. That's right, Kishore. You basically clean your credit up and you have better credit, because the most important thing is getting in your home, right? But you don't want credit to be the factor of not getting in your home. So when you clean your credit up and you have that FHA loan, because I think you have to live in that property or have that loan for a certain amount of time. Specific amount of time, I don't remember. I'd have to definitely research and look again, because it's been a minute since I've been in the mortgage, into the game of buying a home. I mean, I'm settled now. But what I'm saying is, right, what you can do is refinance that FHA loan into a conventional mortgage. Yes, you can. That's how you get out of it. So I'm not personally, for me, I'm not against using any program that's going to get you what you need. You get what I'm saying? It's like, they'll say, pay a higher now, and then later, once they watch you, you could get better. Again, right. Okay. Thank you. 1 year waiting period. Thank you, Kishore. Thank you so much. I guess we should have like co-live together, because you're so factual. God bless your statements. Like, thank you. But it's 1 year. So if it's me and I get an FHA loan where I have that PMI insurance and everything, I would definitely refinance if I can't keep up with that. The FHA loan is just Okay, Munkai, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much. Hope to see you next live. I would definitely refinance to get out of it because there's no way I want to keep paying that. And then, this all of this goes back to be financially savvy. Oh, wow. Oh, you're great, Kishore. You're great. That is definitely the way to go, investing in real estate. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't know the game of real estate. On this channel that I have, I always talk about like leveling up money. I talk about, like buying a home. I talk about certain things, and it's like, I don't know. I don't know if it's registering to people when they watch my videos or they think it's just fluff or people click off. I have no idea. But I know for me, when I was in that game and I was in that market, like that was the ultimate for me. Okay, you have to understand, or people should understand that with real estate is something that will never die. Okay, I don't care if it's 100 years from now, 100 years before, 1,000 years after. People will always need places to live. They'll always need place to live. They will always need, businesses to open. So hence, you need places, you need dwellings. Okay, right. Oh yeah. I love what you said that you started with FHA and figured the game out. Now loan companies call asking me if I have business for them. Of course, and I'm glad you mentioned that because when when you're in the game at first and you're looking for a mortgage, like okay, like a lot of us start with FHA, as I said I did. When you're looking for a mortgage, oh, they're so difficult. They don't give you anything. They don't work with you. They make it hard. I mean, maybe it's my opinion, but I noticed that even when I was trying to qualify for my mortgage, the amount of paperwork that they asked me for. And at that point, but I was like, okay, look, it's either you're going to give me the loan or you're not. At this point, it's like, I want the home and this is the all American dream and everything like that. But if you're not going to give me that home, then you need to stop wasting my time. Because another thing in life, especially with credit, everything is dependent on time, right? So everything, when they report on the credit bureaus, it all has to do with time. Just like when you get a mortgage, you're not going to sit there and waste my time if you're not going to give me the loan. But I feel they literally put you through so much other hoops to get it. And I guess it's a way to check if you're really ready for this commitment because having a home is a big commitment. Vander, oh my gosh, thank you so much for joining me on this live. I literally had to shout you out. I said it. I have another gentleman in here, Kishore, that's been on this live doing so well, but I literally had to shout you out and say hello. Thank you so much. So now today, if you're just joining me, we're talking about I'm talking about three types of mortgages that you can get, and how everything is based on your credit. And just to recap what you missed, I talked about the conventional loans, and I talked about having a 620 and higher credit score if you want to qualify to get a conventional loan. But what we're delving in and what we're talking about right now, we're talking about having a 580 and above to do the FHA. So I had a gentleman here on the live. I think he's still here. I don't know. I'm not sure if he dropped off, but I had a gentleman live and investor, and he was talking about the properties and how we started with FHA, just as how you were saying in the other live the other day. So sorry, I get a little thirsty. But the point of the matter is that FHA is definitely the way to go, whether you want to make it your primary residence or you want to do it for, I guess later investing or refinance. Now, some people start with FHA loans because they were easier for them to get. And then later, what we're saying, is like maybe after like a year, you can refinance out of the FHA loan and get a conventional loan. So there's so many ways to do it. But again, this all goes back to, having good credit and deciding if you want to clean up your credit. Because whether you're getting a car, you're getting a home, you're trying to invest in a business, if your credit isn't good, nobody qualifies you for anything. Right. But for the homeowner that, or for the future homeowner that wants to start, if they could at least, right, it's a mindset. That's right. For the future homeowner, they can at least, start or try to get their credit at least 580 and up, preferably 620. They say aim high, score low. If they say the minimum is 580, I'm definitely trying to at least get my credit up to a 650. That way I give more. Okay, yes, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm letting people know what's going on because a lot of people, especially I could talk about for me, like growing up, I wasn't really schooled on certain things. I had to learn the hard way about credit. So, me, this is the passion for me in having this channel and talking to people about how to level up their money. A home is one of the first ways that you can level up your money. Okay. But how do you level up your money? The gateway to leveling up your money and getting that home is to have decent credit or to have good credit. So you can qualify for the mortgage because once you buy that home, you can do so much. Think about it. Let's say it's an initial FHA loan. For the FHA loan and so forth, you have that mortgage for 30 years. We got a 30 years fixed rate. And we're going to talk about, them fluctuating loans in a minute, but let's just stick to this. You have a 30-year fixed rate, right? That's excellent. Within those 30 years, whatever, look at all the equity you're building. Providing that if you have the house for 30 years, or let's say you lived in the house for 15 years or 10 years, and you didn't, make your house like a cash spot, like you didn't keep refinancing, taking money at your house, and your house was growing. Do you know how much money you could have made? Because if you had stuck in the apartment or you had stuck renting from somebody, when you pay rent, you're just basically throwing your money down the drain. Okay? Now, not everybody's fortunate where they could just simply jump and buy a home. It's a dream for everybody. But I think the first way to do it is to, have a right. It exactly right. Okay. Let's talk. Okay. Okay. This is a good point. Kishore said that now is the time to get an adjustable rate because rates will be falling. Exactly. I would tell anybody right now. I know a lot of people are so focused on what's going on, over, in the government and, inflation and everything like that. But every wise person, whether it's a future homeowner or a wise investor, knows that this is the time to be preparing right now. See, what people don't realize is that wherever you live, wherever land that you're living, okay, you need to be basically watching the market and preparing for when shit hits the fan so you could buy the things that you want to buy. Now, the other point that Kishore just mentioned is like there are programs that give you down payment assistance. A lot of people don't know that. Okay? A lot of people don't know that there are programs that give you down payment assistance. I don't understand why people don't take assistance or why people don't want it. What do you think looks worse? Do you think it looks worse? Yes, that's right, Bander. 3.5% for the FHA. Excellent, thank you. What do you think looks worse? Wasting your money for 20, 30 years renting from someone, or wouldn't it be better for you to just get down payment assistance and qualify for a program? Wouldn't that be better to do that than take the money? So I remember in my day, what? They'll gift you the money. Thank you. I remember one year, a couple years ago. I'm living on the East Coast. It was an organization, and what it was, I think they really work with the state that I'm living in. And what they would do is they'd have a thing where you could save with them. So let's say over the years, let's say if you wanted to buy a home, and let's say I'm just throwing a number, you save $10,000. They would literally match you and give you like the same 10 back. So you had $20,000 to buy your house, because even though they say when you're buying a house, like it's, if there's no down payment and everything, you still got to have some cash. You still got to have a little bit of money. Even if you do the seller's concession where the seller basically plays the closing costs, I don't care. You still need to go to the closing table with something. Right. And, Kishore made a point before in saying that these are lessons or these are things that are not taught in schools. Okay? They're not taught in schools. And they're not going to advertise, especially these down payment assistance programs. They're not going to advertise and tell you, oh, guess what? If you just watch a video and you just attend a few seminars and you do this and you do that, we'll give you this money. It's money. Who gives out money? You have to understand that the government allocates a certain amount of money that it's supposed to give back to consumers. But they're not going to knock on your door, or they're not going to call you and say, hey, guess what? If you watch a couple of videos or you attend a few seminars, we'll give you some money to buy a home. Because the sad reality about it is a lot of people don't even have the dream. They don't want it. They don't know the benefits of having that home, or they don't know the benefits of having the credit. Okay? They don't know. Sometimes you got to make sacrifice. You got to pass on things. Okay? A lot of people never learn how to flip money. They didn't know that you could basically use this money. Right, exactly. You got to research. You got to do your due diligence. As we say in the line of real estate, you got to do your due diligence. All right? You have to start that. If you don't do your due diligence, you're not going to learn. But think about it with every single thing that you do. If you're a mechanic, right? I'm just saying, if somebody's a mechanic or somebody's a medical doctor, didn't they have to do like learn and go to school and learn about it because they were interested in pursuing it? Well, it's the same thing, right? It's the same exact thing with, with your finances and money. But unfortunately, finances is not something that is taught. You know when finances are taught? When you're literally like going to school for like an MBA. And if you're going to school for an MBA and they want you to like work for their company, or they're trying to tell you to get into a company, like maybe get on Wall Street, then you're learning about that. But the everyday things like writing a check, um, you know, talking about credit. Again, I'm going back to this whole credit thing again. They never taught us that in school. Let me tell you, I remember when I was in high school and I got my first checking account. And this is years ago. This is in the 90s. I got my first checking account. And I'm getting it, and I'm writing checks and everything like that. And at the time, we didn't even have direct deposit. I had a little part-time job as a teenager, right? And I would just literally write checks. And then one day I went to the bank. They would write you then. Everything wasn't digital. And the lady said to me, she said, "Sweetheart, you don't realize that when you write checks, you have to have money in the account. The bank doesn't pay your checks. They don't pay." I kid you not, I didn't know. She said, "If you write checks, right." Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Banner. Thank you so much. She said, if you write checks and you don't have the money, that's something called kiting. Okay. She said, you always have to have money. You have to literally sit and do your plus and minuses. And that's how you revolve a bank account. Okay. That's what she taught me. Those little things aren't taught in school. I don't know if they don't want you to know or so forth. I don't know what it is. But the bottom line is this: we have to learn. Okay. Now, Kishore said credit is the key to making it in this world. You need to know how to make your debt work for you. So now, that is actually a good thing if you look at it. There's nobody that could live debt free. Even the rich have debts. But what you can do, or what you should do with the debt, is that you need to show how you manage the debt. That is the key to getting the credit. So I remember at the beginning of the live, Kishore was saying that, listen, I keep my utilization at 10% and I pay my cards every week. You have to show them when you need to get your credit better that you know how to manage the debt. If you don't do that, right? Okay? If you don't know how to manage it, or how to show them the credit report card, they're not going to qualify you. It's also sad when somebody goes to apply for a loan, whether they're doing it in the home buying or two things that people buy a lot with credit: cars and homes, right? An auto and a home. And you go and you apply for it. They look at you when your credit score is low, like they look at you like you're irresponsible. They look at you like you're quote unquote like poor, like are you quote unquote stupid. I mean, it's so sad. That's how they look at people, right? And that's not even the case sometimes. Sometimes some people just didn't know how to manage their credit. All right, let's move on from there. Say you did have bad credit, and you did decide that you wanted to learn. You got better with your credit, right? What is the next step that you think you need to take once you got your credit cleaned up? Once you got your credit cleaned up, so forth, you need to buy something. You need to let the credit work for you. This is how you flip the credit. You buy something with the credit, and then once you buy something with the credit, you take care of it. You start paying on it. All right. Okay. If it's the home, you make them mortgage payments consistently. Now you have some people that say, listen, I want to pay my mortgage off in a certain amount of time. Or you have people that have their mortgage payments like every 2 weeks, depending on, what incentive they're getting. But whatever works for you, you got to ensure that once you're able to get that credit and you're buying the products that you buy, that you know exactly how to utilize it. And that's the thing. A lot of people weren't taught how to utilize credit. I think credit is a wonderful thing. Why I like credit? When you have credit, let's say you run on broke, you got a couple credit cards, you could easily just borrow that money from your credit cards. And as Kishore said, you just keep paying it and paying it every month, or if you want to do it weekly, however you see fit to pay it, depending on your payroll. But if you don't know how to manage that credit and you just having it sitting there, you just using that credit card and you don't pay the credit card back, hello, your credit's gonna default and you're gonna be in the same boat as you were before. The same exact boat that you were before. So until you basically learn how to manage it, it's not going to be easy for you. I also wanted to talk about something else with the FHA loans. And I don't think that I really mentioned this a lot. But I did say that, With FHA loans, Vander had said it right now. They're just looking for 3.5%, 3.5% down, and I think 3.5% is decent. In my day, it used to be what do you call it? That's right, diversity of income. That's right. When I was qualifying for my home, it was only 3% at the time. Okay. Okay, Kishore said, I told my friend, charge a tank of gas. You have money in the bank to pay for it. Pay half once the charge shows up, and the other half days later. Rinse and, oh, love it. Rinse and repeat. And I'll tell you something funny. Okay, yes, that is a good strategy. Rinse and repeat. Once you rinse and repeat, they will be giving you a higher credit limit. Okay? They will literally give you a higher credit limit. So on another live before that, we'll look at the 775. On another live before that, my previous live, if you look at my channel, my previous live, and I talked about, raising the credit scores, right? And I said that if you can't get a credit card and you end up even getting a secured card, remember, when it's a secured card, right, you secure it, you basically fund it. Once you fund that credit card, they allow you to graduate. So you see how Kishore just said that, you know what, listen, my friend had a $300 credit limit. You was only able to spend $300. Now he can spend up to $1,300. Listen, because they saw that he knew how to manage money. They saw that this person knew how to manage the money. So that's why they ended up giving him more money. So yes, that's the same exact way the secure credit cards work. If you secure, let's say, you went and you put $500 down to get a secure credit card. Okay, buy some gas, just like Kishore said, and then when you buy the gas, you pay it. Okay? And they will increase. So here's the thing now. When you do the secure credit card, let's say you put 500 down. I think some banks, yes, Capital One, yep. Even now, they even allow you to have like 200 down for a secure credit card. I mean, these banks want business, but they want to do business with people that are going to actually like work with them. I mean, it's a risk for them too. You just have to be fair and normal. It is a business. Your credit score it's like a business. Like it's what you put out. That's what you're going to get back in. But once you put that down, okay, once you put the money down for the secure credit card, right, and so forth, and you've been paying it for a while, they will allow you to graduate. And what's the graduation? Where they give you back the money that you put down after they watch you for a while. And most they watch you for like a year, like the 12 months of the time. I guess that's the fiscal year they watch you, and they give it back. And sometimes when they give it back, they'll even increase you. Okay, that's right. Credit is a big treasure. They will increase you. Now, Kishore said, whatever money you used to pay for cash, use your credit card and use the cash to pay the charges. Exactly. So, for example, let's say, for example, like you went into like the mall, you went into Macy's, right? And you bought a couple shirts, you bought $100, and you already had the cash in your debit card. Use your credit card and pay the $100 for the clothes that you bought. Literally the next day, or even like the weekend. Let's say you went like Monday evening. Let's say the weekend. Pay back that money. Pay the cash back. Because when you pay the cash back right away, you didn't allow the bank to make the APR on you. You didn't allow it to make the interest on you. And number two, it shows credibility. It shows that you just borrow money. You just use credit for a while. You didn't let it prolong. The worst thing is if you get a credit card and let's say you have 1,000 limit and you take 5 years to pay $1,000, like you know how much money that bank made on you? Good for them. Because they know the game. I mean, they're in the business of making money. Good for them, but bad for you. Good for them, but bad for you. Okay? Right. Now, Bander's talking about buying and fixing and selling. Yep. Oh, that was so big. We talked about investing a little bit before. That now is a good time. The gentleman mentioned, Kishore mentioned that that now is good to get jumbo rates for mortgages because the rates, not jumbo, adjustable. I'm sorry, adjustable rates for mortgages because now the rates are going to go down. So if you have an adjustable mortgage, and let's say you get 8%. I'm just throwing something out there. When it's adjusted, you might just be down to a good 3%, right? So in the end, you might pay a little bit more now, but in the latter end, you end up paying less once the rates get adjusted. So those are also good mortgages. The other one that I wanted to talk about before we go back into the credit, I also wanted to talk about the VA loans. Now, what do you call it? VA loans are obviously for veterans. And the good thing with those loans is that, they don't require any down payment. But I'm sure with every loan, you got to bring something to the table. But it's a great way for, veterans or people that want to buy, or families of veterans, if they want to get a home, to use that program. Because we just mentioned before using different types of programs to get, whether it's down payment assistance or you qualify based on, type of job or wherever you're from. Those are also good ways for people to get loans and mortgages. And a lot of people are not taking advantage of those things. They're not. They're not. I don't understand why. Even if somebody wants to get like a loan, what do you call it? If somebody wants to get a loan for a business, there's so many like programs out there, so many places. I did a live on, the SBA talking about getting money and being able to get, qualifications, for business loans and so forth. And again, just like mentioning that too, it also has to do with your credit score. Everything goes back to your famous credit score. If your credit score is not up to par, all right, exactly, daily compounding. If your credit score is not up to par, you're not going to be able to get anything, you know? So what I would tell anybody, if they're in the game where they want to get a home or they want to buy certain things, I would tell anybody, first thing, first step, clean up that credit. Clean it up. Now, a lot of people might say that cleaning up credit is a little bit difficult because you have to pay. You don't have to pay anybody to do anything. You could do it yourself. When I've had bouts and periods where my credit was lower, I literally did it myself. Again, I couldn't, be spending my money out there on things that I could definitely use. I mean, I could have used that money for my down payment, right? I couldn't be using money for that. I literally would write the bureaus myself. I'd get my reports. I have a video on my channel that talks about ways. Right. Talks about ways how to clean up your credit. 3 steps how to clean up your credit. And I give it on there. Kishore said, you try to go to a lender direct, not a mortgage broker. You will pay more fees. Oh, that's right. Because the broker is the middleman, right? Right. Because the broker is you, the broker in the middle, and then the mortgage company. So if the broker is gonna go get the loan, because think about it, the broker is going to the mortgage company to get the loan for you, right? So you do better by going to the mortgage company yourself. And now with this day of technology, like for example, if you were again a first-time home buyer and you wanted to buy a home and so forth, you could just go online. I mean, good old Bank of America, like I'm a fan of them. Um, you could just go online and literally put in what you want. So much of these direct mortgage companies, right? So much of these mortgage companies literally, okay, they literally allow you to just apply. I mean, they even have programs. Right, right. Bander said it's the mindset. Of course, it's the mindset. If I again on my channel, I always talk about getting your mind right. I have a book that I wrote, an ebook. It's called 10 Steps to Level Up Your Money. And in that ebook, I literally, um, right. 1 second, I'll touch on that point, Kishore, 1 second. In that ebook that I wrote, I literally talked about the 10 things that you need to do or you need to have to basically like, you know, flow in life. How to make your money, like getting your home, getting your insurances, taking care of your health, buying certain things. But the one thing that I did talk about in that book, I talked about how to get your mind right. And no, I'm not a psychologist, but I'm talking about if your mind isn't right with certain things, you can't do certain things. So the journey of cleaning up your credit, you got to make sure your mind is right. You got to be you got to be wanting to do it. You got to say, okay, listen, I need to buy that home. I want to get that car. I got to make sure my credit is good because you know what? If you buy it at a bad credit rating, in the long run, you got to pay for it. It's the worst. What gave you an ounce of satisfaction today is going to be like misery tomorrow when you look at that bad interest rate. So having that credit score up to par is integral. It's important. Now, let's go back to this point. Kishore said that the mortgage broker is only getting your paperwork in order for the bank. The bank will ask you for what you need. Exactly. And if you notice, if you've ever bought a home before, and I'm sorry, a little thirsty. If you've ever bought a home before and you went with the mortgage brokers, they constantly call you every day. They're asking you for a paper. Every single day, the mortgage company is asking you for a paper. Every single day. And it's like, what are you asking me papers for? Well, you thought by going to the mortgage broker that you were just directly working with somebody. No, the broker is the middleman, okay? I have my 3 fingers up. This is you, this is the broker, and this is the mortgage company. Right here, this is the broker right here. He or she sends all the money, all the papers over there. So why not cut the broker out and just literally just go to the mortgage company itself? Okay, make it 2, you and the mortgage company. Literally just jump over there to them. Once you just jump over to the mortgage company with it, it's going to be easier because you're in direct contact. And most time, another tip, if you decide to get the mortgage with the mortgage company, the direct bank itself, rather than the broker, most times, if not 99% of the time, if you're already banking with them, remember they already have your history. Let's say, for example, you had a credit card. Let's say you want to get a mortgage with Bank of America. You have a credit card with Bank of America. Right. If you have a credit card with Bank of America and they already see, your spending profile, you have your bank accounts, your direct deposit comes in there. They already know exactly like what it is that you do. So it is not hard for you to get it to qualify with the bank itself rather than going through the broker. Right. Now, let's quickly jump. A gentleman also brought up, he said the key to wealth is multiple sources of income. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. For me personally, I like the real estate part of income. I think it's good, as I said before at the beginning of the live, that, real estate, you can never fail with that. Listen, I don't care where your properties are. If your properties are in the suburbs, your properties are in, low income areas, disadvantaged neighborhoods, your properties are in middle America, it doesn't matter. Because the funny thing is, there are people that prefer to live certain places. So wherever you have your property, there will always be somebody that either wants to rent. You have people that don't even want to be homeowners, they just want to rent. So can you imagine if you're a landlord and you're able to secure all those properties? Can you imagine how much wealth you can generate, how much money you can make? And all of this goes back to when you had cleaned up that credit or you established your credit. I also want to mention too with credit and kids. Um, we touched on it a few times where we say that these things aren't taught in school. And just to piggyback on that, a lot of times we don't teach our children about money. We don't teach our children about credit. We don't teach them about money. Again, I have a video on my channel again. It says, it's talking about teaching children how to save. And funny enough, I didn't get a lot of views for that video because, again, nobody wants to hear it. Okay? But what I'm saying is it all starts from the time that they were younger. Okay, if you can teach your child how to save, why don't you teach your child about credit? Okay? Teach them about real estate. Teach them about the beauty of stuff like that. Teach them about fixing and flipping. Why do you think there's so many millionaires out there? Why do you think so many? It wasn't their 9 to 5 jobs. It was their incomes. I mean, it was their investments and their incomes that they made from their investments. No, I'm pro job. I mean, I have a job. Like today's Sunday. Tomorrow morning I'm getting up. I'm going to my job. I am all about jobs. But as Bander said and as Kishore said, you have to have multiple streams of income. So you go to your job and so forth, and you make your money, you get your medical benefits, but at the same time you have other things that you do to make your income. Okay? But before we level up, before we clean up, what I always say, you got to make sure your credit is right. Ironically, I just want to mention one last thing, that sometimes when you go to certain places, and I don't believe, I'm here in the US, I don't believe, well, we're not official cashless society. Yes, we're a digital society, but we're not cashless. Some places do not even want for you to pay for stuff with cash. Hence, they say, oh, well, what's your social security number? Let me check your credit. Let me see what credit limit I could give you. They want to give you a credit limit. They don't want to mess with cash. So until you literally learn that, like, listen, like, credit is the way to go. There's no other way. There's no other way than doing that. Right. Oh, yeah, cash is good. Cash is king. Yes. But I think you'll have more cash to spend once you have that great credit and you're getting all those cards. I mean, listen, I know a gentleman that has like literally like almost 100 credit cards. I'm not even kidding. And he just keeps spending it and spending it and spending it and revolving them and paying them off. Right. Bander mentioned, vending machines and getting ATMs. Oh, yeah. Any which way. But what I'm saying is to get those ATMs, how are you qualifying to get those those vending machines or those ATM machines? How do you get those? Is it, do you think it's through, again, having good credit and qualifying? Is there like a special company that you go through? We know that in order for you to get the real estate for investment, that it all depends on you going with the bank and the mortgage company, and of course having the decent credit for that. But in terms of like the ATM and the vending machines and so forth, How are you doing that one? That one I'm not really familiar with. I haven't really dabbled on that one, but I have heard of people getting vending machines and getting ATMs and all of those things. Right, 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 right. Yes, of course, interest compounds daily. And when interest compounds daily, you make more money. Okay. I always talked about, especially for savings, I always talk about those high yield savings account that a lot of people sleep on. And you hear people say, oh, make money or sleep with your bank account. Well, that's how they make money. They'll sleep with their bank account, with those savings account. Because when those high yield savings accounts are giving you like 4 to 5%, as opposed to your bank that's giving you 0.1%, like that doesn't even make any sense. Of course, you got to keep a bank account, right? I've also on this channel talked about a few accounts that everybody needs to have. I talked about people having brokerage accounts. Okay, talk about people having high yield savings accounts. I talked about people, having accounts with credit unions, right? I talked about people just having their regular bank accounts for every day to pay their bills and just their regular savings. But what I reiterated on the savings account was I said, listen, I said, just ensure that wherever you're saving your money, that you're getting something for your money. Just ensure that you're literally getting a good interest rate. Gone are the days when we're just leaving our accounts in regular bank accounts and they're barely getting even like 0.3%, not even 3.3%, literally a tenth of a percent on 3%. That is nothing. Okay. You have to basically put your money to places where it's going to work for you, right? Where it's going to work for you. Now, I just want to ask for the people that are on the live, when you guys, did your homes, like what type of loan did you get? Did you start with a conventional? I know Kishore had mentioned that he had done FHA. There's the veterans and so the adjustable and so forth. Like, what was it that you started with? Which one? Okay, so you did FHA and you said that you had the FHA for at least a year until you refinance out of it. Right. Okay, you did mention that before. Yes, you did. So you did FHA and you said it was a good product. And the reason why I'm asking is I just want to basically like sum up the live and run up the live and say like, yeah, right. As a first time home buyer, I think the FHA is good. I mean, when I did it, I couldn't do conventional. I didn't have the money to do conventional. And quite frankly, I didn't even really care either. I mean, my whole thing was that, and even when I got my home, like I wasn't even as like wise or, not that I'm giving myself any praise, but I didn't know as much. I didn't have as much wisdom and knowledge about like, home buying and credit and, saving and money like that. I mean, I just wanted a home. I just wanted to start. I just knew that I didn't want to. Right. Thank you, Bander. I just know that I didn't want to keep throwing my money away, on rent. Well, okay. You said yes, and every 4 years I reuse my first time home buyer. Yes, yes, thank you. That's a good point. Yes, I have ever heard of that you can do it after a while. But here's the problem with this. The problem is that like a lot of people have a problem coming up with the cash. But Kishore did mention before, yes, right, free from taxes. Yeah, everybody. Kishore did mention before that you can basically use it. You can get down payment assistance. Yes, you can. You see, speaking of down payment assistance, a lot of people don't know that there are programs out there for help. I mentioned it before. A lot of people let their pride. I mean, if you want something and you don't know how to get it, and you research and find it, like, why don't you want to use it, or why wouldn't somebody use it? The product is there for you to use, so utilize the product. So that way, you get what I'm saying? You can literally get like gain from it. I also want to talk about this. For those of us that were first time home buyers, with FHA, a lot of people, and I don't know if Kishore used this, did you know did you end up getting the seller to pay the closing costs? Because a lot of times the seller ends up pay the closing costs. And it doesn't mean that the seller literally like gives you back a check in your hand. Right. Okay, Coca-Cola Company. Thank you, Bander. And I guess, next time I have to do a live on, getting into the vending machine business. But I mean, but for me to do a live on that, I'd really have to, right, I literally have to, research and find out. It's not something that I ever plugged into. My main thing is, leveling up our money and, talking about the beauty of credit and, and as I said, I like real estate and I like investing and stuff like that. I think it's really, really good. Right. Hold on a second. How much you make, you can get back almost all the money that deduct from your pay. That's right. Yeah, right. She said they always have to sell her cough up the cost of buying the home. Yes, yes, yes. I mean, well, in a way, it kind of works out well because the seller wants to sell. What are we now? Buyer or seller's market at this point, right? The seller wants to sell. Listen, I have people like literally calling me all the time saying, "Hey, uh, you know, do you want to sell your home? You want to list your home?" And I laugh and I always say to the representative, I'm like, "Well, I wouldn't mind making a little money for my home because my home is appreciated in value. But here's the problem: like, if I sell you my home, where am I gonna live? you know, I always say like, where am I gonna live if I end up doing that? But for them, it's like, okay. I mean, they're just in the business of real estate, right? Okay, so buyer's market for the most part, yeah. But I could remember even up for like even a year ago, like a year, it was literally a seller's market. Like people were like really, really, really trying, you know, like they wanted to sell big time. Right, right. They wanted to sell big time, big time, big time, big time, you know? And that's why I said that they were literally calling and asking if people want to list their homes. And I always said it like, I mean, I'm not going to say I was sarcastic, but jokingly, I would say, listen, if I sell you my home, where am I going to live? I need my home, you know? They would say, oh, no, we just thought, because your property, went up in value that, you should try to sell it. And I said, well, I can't do that. I can't do that. Maybe, in the next 20 years when I decide to retire and stop working, of course, at that point. But for now, I mean, I'm good. I'm reaping the benefits of it now. It's a blessing. It's a wonderful thing, you know? Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm all for for the first time home buyer programs. Definitely, for sure. I just want to ask, you guys, is there anything else that you'd like for me to like really dive into for the next live? Again, today's live was about, how credit really plays a role in the type of mortgage that you can qualify for. It makes such a big, big difference. And from what I gather from this live, I see that a lot of people, sorry, I'm a little thirsty. I think a lot of people would probably start with an FHA, if they're struggling with credit or finance or money and so forth. But whatever it is, whether you do FHA, which is with that accepts the lower credit score and less money down, or you do conventional that says you could have a stronger backing, or I mentioned the VA if you're a veteran, and we also talk about the adjustable, where the rates up and down. It doesn't matter at the end of the day. The four of them that I mentioned, you're still gonna have to have your credit decent. You're still going to have your credit at a decent score. And if your credit is not at a decent score, you're not going to qualify. You know, I also made a point the other day on the other live when I talked about the authorized user. I told a story of a lady that needed to get her score up. She was at a 580, and that's another thing too. The higher your score is the better rate that you get. Okay, for example, I forgot to mention that if let's say you and somebody's buying a home, the interest rate that they give you is based on the person that has like the better score. Okay, so you want to get your score as high as possible. Where both of you or whoever you're buying it with has the higher score. Because again, if you're let's say you're buying with somebody, you have a 650 and they got like a 580, right? It's a big difference in the scores. It's a big difference in the interest rate. Okay, so everybody needs to have their credit up. Okay, Kishore said, buying a home, holding it for 2 years, selling it, finding a home that needs less down. So I use the entire equity to buy a second home. Right, right, right. That's it. Yeah. So a lot of people also use their equity. I know in the game of real estate, and again, this is not really about real estate, but I mean, it all piggybacks. Um, there's a like what is it called? A BRRRR strategy: buy, rinse, repeat, and all those things. Right. Yeah. There's different strategies on how to do it. And it's funny that mention that because even with that strategy, in order for you to get them to do that BRRRR strategy, when you get that home, right, and you go to like a bank, I always say it's good to go to like a credit union if you want to do BRRRR strategies, right? If you go there, it all goes back to your credit. They're not going to refinance you out of that loan. You know, the cash value, not going to refinance you unless you have a decent credit score. They're not going to do it. So again, everything piggybacks on credit scores. Everything piggybacks on what your score is. They don't care. And it's not even a matter of care. Like again, the lender wants to make sure that you're right. You said it. Credit is the key. The lender wants to make sure that that you're doing well. Now, I was thinking, for the next live, to continue with the credit series, because I think a lot of people, like learning about credit. It's I'm not gonna say it's a cliche topic, but it's a topic where like some people don't really talk about credit. I mean, it's not a conversation at the dinner table to say, oh, guess what? I have bad credit, I have good credit, or I have Only time that we really talk about credit is again when we're trying to buy stuff. Most likely when we're trying to buy that car, or we're trying to buy that home, or we're trying to qualify for things. Everything, even when you get auto insurance, they look at your credit. If you want to get like a simple, like a regular loan, if you want to take out like a student loan, everything is based on your credit. And the thing is, I don't know, maybe it's now, but like when I was a kid, and again, I was a kid, I didn't really know what was going on then, but I doubt that it was so difficult. Right. Start with small and then level number one. Right. I doubt that it was so difficult to get credit. Or I doubt that, the credit score was such a major thing. And I want to do some research because I want to really find out like when credit became such a big thing in this in this world, period. Doesn't matter where you live, it doesn't matter what continent, like credit is still everything. And what does credit say to people? Credit tells a lender, if your credit is good, that they can trust you. They can trust lending you their money. Okay? It says that you will be responsible. Yes. Thank you so much for subscribing. If you get a chance, be sure look in the link in the description. I know you're very educated, but pick up a copy of the ebook. Really appreciate the support of the channel and so forth. I love doing this. I love talking. I love, working with my people. I love, pushing everybody to try to get that credit score up and get that first home and basically level up your money. And this is what our motto is on this channel. Level up your money, have self-growth. But one of the first ways to grow is by having really good credit. All right, thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. Yes. Vander, we're about to end now and so forth. I just want to know if you had any other things that you wanted me to address before and so forth. Thank you for the subscription. Again, link is in the description. The name of the ebook is 10 Steps to Level Up. If you can, pick up a copy, give it a good read. Touches on everything. All right? Yes. Right. Yeah, I try. Thank you for saying that. Thank you. Yes, I do try to get the information out to people. Yes, I do. I want for people to learn about credit. I want for people to learn about investments. I want for people to learn about having certain bank accounts. Yes, I do. Because, if they don't, how are they ever going to change, what their financial situation is? And besides having good credit, I always tell people that the key to getting anything starts with the wisdom, right? Once you have wisdom and you understand, that wisdom, I remember like our great biblical book says, wisdom is profitable direct. Wisdom is everything, right? Yeah, the book actually, it is 10 steps to level up your money. It talks about basically like growing, elevating your money, like how to get there. And I always tell my viewers, I always tell my audience, I say, listen, no, I don't have 20, 30 books. I just have the one because I feel that the one that I have, like, it shows a lot of information. Um, it basically talks about like how to change things, how to level up, how to grow. Talks about all things that we need to have because as we have been saying in this live the whole time, that a lot of people just really don't know how to change. And right, you said having a rich mindset. Yeah, what's that book by Napoleon Hill? Think Rich. I forgot the name of it, but it talks about having like a rich mindset. Okay, all of those great philosophers are, or those great money men, those great businessmen, the Carnegies, the Rockefellers, they all had rich mindsets. And don't think they never had any failures. They literally had a lot of things that they were dealing with. Okay? Yeah. Right, right. Yeah, everything all depends on, on how you see life, how the background is. If you decide that, listen, if you grew up in a certain way and you didn't have as much and you decide that, listen, I don't want to keep living like this, you're going to definitely learn how to change that. You're going to be motivated to change it. And what have we been talking about on this live? We've been talking about literally just like bringing up our money. That's what we've been talking about. And for today, the topic of this live was basically, how credit affects you, how credit affects you getting a mortgage and getting certain things. Right. Yes, definitely. We're going to be getting rich. We're going to be definitely getting rich. They say everything is in the power of the tongue, right? So if you say it, it's gonna definitely happen for you. If you say that you're gonna get rich, that's really, really wonderful to know that somebody believes that they could definitely get rich and they could change things. Yeah, I've always believed that 100%. I've always believed that getting rich is what's important. But we have to work towards it. But anyway, I thank you so much for joining me on this live. As I said, give me or tell me a topic that you'd like me to talk about, with this credit series. I just right now I'm just really focusing on, you know, good credit. I'm just really focusing on talking about credit and trying to convince a lot of people to clean up their credit. It's so important, it's so pivotal. Okay? Yes, thank you so much for the likes. Thank you for supporting this channel. And as I said, when you get a chance, link is in the description. Please check out, please pick up a copy of the ebook. Give it a read. Maybe there's something in there that you don't know already that might be beneficial to you. And with that said, have a wonderful day, people. All right, team, take care. Thank you so much. Bye. See you in the next live. Bye bye. We also talk about gaining financial prosperity, but more so, we talk about things from a financial perspective or, a social perspective. But let's talk about the finances more so. So for today's live, this is actually a part two to what I said I was gonna be doing before. But this is, becoming an authorized user, the pros and the cons. So for those of you that don't know what an authorized user is, an authorized user is basically somebody that's allowed or authorized to be on your credit card. And once they're authorized to be on your credit card, they get the benefits of you having good credit. So let's begin. Let me explain exactly what I mean about the benefits. So when somebody's an authorized user on a credit card, um, every month that you pay your credit card bill or your trade line is being reported and that person's on it, and the goal of it is that to ensure that you have good credit. So every time when it's being reported, you're also, I'm sorry, the person that's the authorized user is going to get the credit for that. So someone might ask, what is the point of being an authorized user on a credit card? Well, one would seek to become an authorized user on a credit card if they do not or cannot get any credit, right? So, as I said previous in the live before resulting to becoming an authorized user, maybe you try getting a secured credit card. And in trying to get a secured credit card, you weren't successful. So you decided that you'd want to become an authorized user. All right. So now, saying that you want to become an authorized user and being an authorized user is not easy as one, two, three. Because first of all, you have to find someone that qualifies or someone that you could find to go on their credit line or their trade line as an authorized user. So let me explain how that works. So the first thing you're going to do is, and this is where you're going to have to divulge some of your financial information to someone. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to find out basically or find someone who has good credit. You're going to find somebody who has a strong payment history. And let me explain to you the importance of the payment history. We all know that I think your payment history is about 35% of your overall credit profile. So you want to find someone that has a good, strong credit profile. Now you're not just gonna go around and select anybody randomly to to find out their credit profile. You're gonna get the credit profile from somebody you know has good credit. So I've always advised people with an authorized user. I've always said, listen, get your authorized user's credit card from someone that you know and trust, somebody that you know that has good credit. So, for example, okay, let's say whatever you're a younger person, you're just trying to build credit. Somebody that you might go to for an authorized user credit card is probably your parents or your guardian, whoever you live with, right? Whoever you know that has good credit. If you don't have your guardian, maybe you could talk to your significant other or some other relative or someone or even a close friend. And what you have to do is the only thing is that when you ask somebody to be an authorized credit holder, you have to basically let people know about your credit situation. They're gonna know. There is no way you can avoid not letting the person know that obviously you don't have any credit or you're trying to build credit or you don't have a credit card. And you need for them to help you to get the authorized user profile. There's nothing wrong with that. I always say it that sometimes, we have to divulge a little bit more information than we want to, but at the same time, it's not going to hurt you to let someone know because remember, you need that card. So, when is it that people really need to become authorized users? Well, we know that everything is based off your credit profile. So, whatever you're trying to buy. So, for example, let's say you're trying to buy a car, trying to buy that first car or a different car, and your credit is weak or your credit is low. Now, let's say you have a minimum credit score, maybe something in the 4 or 500s. I'm just throwing some numbers out there. It's going to be very difficult for you to qualify to get a good rate on the loan. Okay, they're going to run it, but even if you stick to the loan at your own interest rate, I'm sorry, your own credit rate that you have right now, your credit score, you're going to get a horrible rate. You're going to get like such an inflated rate for that loan. So it's kind of better for you to have a lower credit score. I'm sorry, a higher credit rating. So you end up getting the better rate. All right. So let's jump back now to how you basically get your score elevated as the authorized user. So now you've done a little research and you found a candidate, you found somebody that's going to help you because again, somebody putting you on their credit card or their trade line as an authorized user, that's actually a big favor. It's not something that people want to jump and do because remember, it's a big line of responsibility. So you found a candidate, and how did you find a candidate? First of all, you double check and made sure that the person that you want to go on their credit card, that they have good credit. The second thing that you need to do after you find a candidate with good credit and they've agreed to help you, you got to ensure that the credit card that or the trade line that they're going to put you on as an authorized user, you got to make sure that that it reports to the three credit bureaus as an authorized user. It doesn't make sense. I don't care if it's one of them big credit cards. It doesn't make sense for you to get on somebody's credit card or somebody's trade line as an authorized user and it doesn't report because another thing is that not all credit cards report as authorized users. They don't. Not all credit cards allow you to do it. It's actually a privilege that a lot of credit cards allow you to do. So you have the person that's going to help you to be an authorized user, and you've also checked, not just by their word, but you literally called the 800 number and you was like, listen, I'm so and so, and I'm about to be an authorized user. I just want to ensure that you all let authorized users on, onto their credit profiles. Great, they've cleared it up. You've done it. Now you're going to be able to be an authorized user. You decided to go along with it. Fabulous. So at this point, now you go back to the person and you say, listen, I checked on the credit card. As you said, they do allow authorized users. So now this is the actual step of how you become the authorized user. So our goal of becoming an authorized user was to get the good credit rating reported through our social security number, right? Because your social security number is what the credit bureaus use to basically give you a credit report card. Okay, your credit score or your credit profile lets lenders see and know how you manage and how you spend your money, right? It's like when we were kids and we got our report cards. This let our parents know by the teachers how we were doing in school. Well, it's the same thing with the credit bureaus. Okay, the credit bureaus, that's their way of letting the lenders know how you manage money, how you're doing. So now this person has decided to put you on an authorized user. You now have to give the person that's going to put you on their credit card. You got to give your social security number. Now I know some people might feel a little iffy about it. They might feel like, well, I don't want to give that person information, but there's no other way around it. And I don't think the person's gonna let you have information or privy information to call and speak with the credit bureaus on their account, because again, this is a private account. They're just doing you a favor. Okay, so they have basically decided that they'll put you on and you're now there as an authorized user on the credit card. You still at this point have to do some homework. You got to check and make sure that this person, whoever it is that you're on, that they're still reporting to the credit bureaus. Basically, that they're still making their payments on time. Because it doesn't make any type of sense to be on somebody's credit profile if it's not reporting to the credit bureau accurately or they're not paying their bills. Now, bear in mind, when you get the credit card, when you get your name on their credit profile, okay, essentially you got your first credit card. When you get your name on that card and you're an authorized user, if the person decides to give you a card that you can make purchases, maybe it's your parents, and they say, okay, I'm gonna give you my credit card and I'm gonna let you buy gas, whatever, go to McDonald's, I'm gonna let you make purchases as long as you pay it back, whatever. All right. If the person decides to give you the credit card and you make any purchases on it, unless you have some arrangement with the person, right? Thank you. Hi, Taryn. Thank you for joining me. Love to have you in the chat room. Ask me any questions you want about authorized users. If the person allows you to make purchases, those purchases are essentially your responsibility. They're yours. Unless, again, if it's, your parents or your friend or your significant other and they say, hey, you can use the card, I'll pay the bill, I don't care, whatever. But just know that when you become an authorized user on somebody's credit card, and if you make purchases, you have to pay the purchases. You have to pay it back. You have to pay the bill, or you got to give the person the money to pay the bill. And in this day and age, it's like a trade. It's like somebody gives you something, whatever, they got to get something back in return. So that's how it works with the authorized user. The other thing that I also wanted to read it with the authorized user is this. We have to ensure that it's being reported. Now, for you to check that, the credit activity is being reported, you're not going to go and bother the person every month and say, oh, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure that it's being reported? You're not going to do that. The way that you're going to check is you're going to do your due diligence. You are going to check your credit report each month.